Yo, Atlas speaking and welcome to a brand new series on the channel. What if I was reborn in One Punch Man as a low-rank hero with the Naruto system and mastered dual Kamui? Synopsis: an ordinary guy suddenly finds himself transmigrated into a brutal hero world, stuck in the weakest possible position as a bottom-ranked C-class hero. But unlike everyone else, he awakens with an overpowered twist. He possesses Obito's dual Kamui and a mysterious system that grants abilities inspired by Naruto. Determined not to stay weak, Shinji decides he'll rise to the very top, no matter what it takes. Things get surreal fast when he realizes he's living next door to Saitama, the strongest yet most clueless hero alive. As Shinji explores his new abilities, he discovers his Sharingan is fueled by mental energy instead of chakra, forcing him to grow smarter and stronger to survive. The system offers him upgrades like enhanced physique and legendary powers, but everything comes at the cost of points he must earn through real danger. With monsters roaming the world and the Hero Association enforcing strict rules, Shinji has only 24 hours to prove himself or be erased from the rankings. His journey begins at rock bottom, mocked by other heroes and standing dead last on the leaderboard. But when a bully's attack phases right through him, revealing the terrifying power of Kamui, it becomes clear this weakest hero won't stay weak for long. Make sure to check out the author linked in the description, and with that being said, let the tale begin. Chapter 1: Double Kamui at the start. Knock knock knock. The sudden knocking pulled Shinji out of his thoughts. He stood up quickly and walked over to open the door. As it creaked open, he was greeted by a shiny bald head that caught the sunlight like a freshly polished egg. "Whoa! There's actually someone here," the bald man said with a surprised look and a slightly clueless smile. "Are you the new neighbor who just moved in today? I thought I'd be the only one living here forever." "Hello, my name is Shinji. Nice to meet you." Shinji responded naturally. He had recognized the man right away. It was Saitama, the protagonist of the Japanese anime One Punch Man. "I'm Saitama." "Nice to meet you too," he replied with a polite nod. Then his expression shifted to one of mild concern. "By the way, is something wrong with your eyes? They look kind of red." Shinji hesitated for a split second before answering. "It's fine. My eyes have always been like this." "Good to hear," Saitama said casually. "Well then, feel free to come by for tea anytime." With that, he turned and headed back to his house next door. Only after the door closed did Shinji slowly raise his hand to his eyes, his mind beginning to race. So it was true. He had actually transmigrated. And not just anywhere, he had ended up in the world of One Punch Man. He walked over to a mirror and examined his reflection. His appearance hadn't changed much from before. He wasn't model-level handsome, but he was definitely decent-looking, with short black hair that vaguely resembled Obito's. But what truly stood out were his eyes. Scarlet Mangekyo Sharingan stared back at him, the tomo forming a spinning tri-bladed pinwheel. There was no doubt. It was Obito Uchiha's Mangekyo Sharingan. And he had both eyes. Just like the system had explained earlier, he hadn't just been thrown into the One Punch Man world. He had also been given a double Kamui setup. That said, a wave of fatigue crept up on him, probably caused by the steady drain from the Mangekyo. After all, he was still in a regular human body for the time being. Then a new question occurred to him. Without chakra, what exactly was powering the Sharingan? Surely it couldn't function just on ocular energy alone. Since the host's body lacks chakra, the Sharingan's usual consumption of chakra and ocular energy has been adjusted by the system to draw from mental energy and ocular power. Mental energy can be improved. Please open the system panel for more details. Right on cue, the system chimed in, as if it had read his thoughts and dropped the answer in his mind. So that's how it worked. Curious, Shinji reached out mentally to try and open the system panel. But before diving into that, he decided to test something else first, whether he could deactivate the Sharingan. Within moments, he realized he could freely switch between Mangekyo Sharingan, 3-tomo Sharingan, and his normal eyes with just a thought. It was clear that walking around with either the 3-tomo version or just his regular black eyes would be the most practical choice for day-to-day life. Next, Shinji focused his thoughts and summoned the system panel. Host, Shinji. Age, 20. Status, Human, Hero Association C-Class Hero. Ability, Dual Kamui. Physique, 10, Average Adult Male Level, 10. Points, 0. Point Store, LV1. As lines of text appeared in front of his eyes, the first thing that grabbed Shinji's attention was the points count and the point store itself. Based on what the system had explained earlier, the method to enhance mental energy should be available somewhere in there, right? Driven by curiosity, he mentally opened the point store. Physique. Hashirama Cells. Crimson Knight Blade. There were only 3 options, so he decided to begin with the first one. Item details. Physique includes all aspects of physical attributes such as strength, speed, and mental energy. It can be exchanged without limit, and attributes can be stacked infinitely. Price, 1 point per unit. That cleared things up instantly. The system's way of improving mental energy was by letting him exchange points for physique stats. Pretty straightforward. But then another question came to mind: where was he supposed to get these points? As the panel had shown, he currently had 0, which meant he couldn't redeem anything just yet. The host can obtain points through battles, interacting with major characters, unlocking hidden achievements, and other activities. That made sense. Shinji gave a small nod and moved on to check the other 2 items. Item details. Hashirama cells provide overall enhancement to the host's abilities, including self-healing. Both mental energy and ocular power, as well as physical injuries, can automatically recover. With a sufficient amount of Hashirama cells, the user may gradually awaken with release techniques. Note, this item is measured in microunits and can also be exchanged and stacked infinitely. Price, 10 points per unit. Item details. The Crimson Knight Blade is the katana used by Obito Uchiha during the Uchiha clan massacre. Though not a divine weapon, it is far superior to ordinary blades. Price, 10 points per unit. After reading through the descriptions of all 3 items, Shinji mentally closed the points store, already beginning to plan how he'd earn his first few points. What also stood out to Shinji was the status section on the system panel. It looked like the system hadn't just dropped him next door to Saitama in the One Punch Man universe but had also assigned him the role of a C-Class hero in the Hero Association. Though, just a C-Class hero? Well, whatever. C-Class is fine. I'll work my way up, Shinji thought with a shrug. Right now, the main goal is to gather points and grow stronger. If he kept using dual Mangekyo Kamui with his current regular human body, he'd burn out fast. And this world wasn't forgiving. One Punch Man's power scale was ridiculous. Even with the Mangekyo Sharingan and dual Kamui, Shinji still felt the pressure of existing in such a dangerous place. After considering things for a moment, he made a decision. First, he'd visit the Hero Association. If he ran into monsters along the way, even better, he could use them to farm points. Being Saitama's neighbor meant he lived in Z City's abandoned zone, also known as Ghost Town. While the Hero Association's headquarters were located in A City, there had to be branches in other areas too. In fact, Saitama and Genos had taken their exams at the Z City branch, which was probably situated in the central district. Now the question is, how he got the system, the purpose of the system, and how he transmigrated into this world. Nah, too lazy to think. Besides, according to Murata, there are some crazy hot chicks here. Without wasting more time thinking, Shinji headed out. Downstairs, the full desolation of Ghost Town came into view. It looked like something straight out of a post-apocalyptic film. Empty buildings, cracked streets, and an eerie silence hung over everything. Not a soul around, not even a monster. This place had been abandoned due to the overwhelming number of monster attacks, but ever since Saitama moved in, most of the threats had probably been annihilated. At least, the ones lurking on the surface. Even after stepping out of the ghost zone and into the residential areas, Shinji didn't see a single monster. After a long walk, with the occasional stop to ask locals for directions, he finally reached the Z-City branch of the Hero Association. Host has reached the Z-City Hero Association. Reward, 5 points. Finally, some progress. The points had come easier than expected. Shinji felt a bit of relief and satisfaction. But just as he started to enjoy the small win, another system message echoed in his mind. According to Hero Association regulations, a C-class hero who does not perform any heroic activities within a week will be removed from the registry. The host has only 24 hours remaining. Please take note. Well, so much for taking it slow. Chapter 2, Z-City Branch of the Hero Association. After hearing the system's warning, Shinji immediately recalled that the Hero Association really did enforce such a rule. Due to the sheer number of C-class heroes and their typically low combat capability, the association routinely purged inactive ones to maintain order. Even with that, there were still close to 400 active C-class heroes. In the world of One Punch Man, humans weren't the only intelligent beings. Monsters existed too, and they came in all forms. Some were once humans who mutated from extreme stress, bad habits, or strange genetics. Others were animals transformed by pollution or experiments. Then there were underground dwellers, the sea folk, bizarre alien lifeforms, and others too strange to categorize. In short, monsters posed a massive threat to humanity and often left destruction in their wake. In response, heroes rose up to fight back. Long ago, there were no professional heroes, just individuals acting on their own. That all changed the day Saitama saved a boy with a double chin. That child turned out to be the grandson of a wealthy man named Agoni. Out of gratitude, Agoni invested a massive fortune to establish the Hero Association, and with that, the era of professional heroes began. Now Shinji was officially one of them, even if he was starting at the very bottom as a C-class hero. The association itself divided heroes into 4 ranks: C-class, B-class, A-class, and the elite S-class. Monsters were categorized differently, based on threat levels from lowest to highest: wolf, tiger, demon, dragon, and god. Just as Shinji stepped into the lobby of the Z-City branch, a staff member in a suit greeted him with a friendly smile. "Oh, Shinji, you're here early." Shinji didn't recognize the man, but since the others seemed to know him, he gave a polite nod and returned the smile. "Looks like you're about to be removed from the registry," the man said, sounding genuinely concerned. "Today's your 6th day since registration. If you don't perform a heroic act by tomorrow, they'll take you off the list." "Thanks for the reminder, man." "I'll take care of it," Shinji replied calmly. "Good. I was worried you might have forgotten," the man added. Then, remembering something, he leaned in slightly. "By the way, even though heroes mostly deal with monsters, as a C-class, your main job is stopping low-level criminals. Don't go out hunting monsters just yet. It's too risky for your rank." "Oh! Humu." Shinji didn't argue. He knew the guy was just trying to be helpful. "All right then, I'll get back to work. If you need anything, don't hesitate to find me." With that, the staff member turned and began walking away. But after just a few steps, he suddenly slowed down and frowned. "Wait, when did I ever meet this Shinji?" He stood there for a second, scratching his head in confusion. Whatever. Probably just sleep-deprived and mixing people up. With so many C-class heroes coming and going, it wasn't unusual to forget a face. Most of them didn't last long anyway. In the main hall of the Z-City branch, Shinji stood in front of a massive digital screen displaying the official hero registry. It listed all active professional heroes, showing their ranks, names, portraits, and basic info. The registry was also available on the association's website so the public could keep track of heroes and report misconduct. If a registered hero stepped out of line or did anything questionable, the Hero Association would investigate and take action as needed. At the very top of the list were the S-class heroes. 1. Blast. 2. Tornado of Terror. 3. Silver Fong. Shinji's gaze flicked over the elite rankings without much interest. He scrolled past until he reached the bottom, where his own name sat, dead last in the entire Hero Association. The absolute lowest ranked C-class hero. It wasn't shocking. He hadn't completed a single heroic activity yet and was already on the verge of being delisted. Of course, they'd shove his name to the bottom to make it easier to cut him out. Still, looking at it with his own eyes felt kind of humiliating. Huh? Did I see that right? You're that guy at the very bottom of the hero registry? A mocking voice rang out from behind him. Shinji turned slightly and caught sight of a muscular man in a yellow vest with tiger stripes. Tank Top Tiger. If he remembered correctly, this guy was ranked 6th in the C-class and a member of the so-called Tank Topper Army. Once he recognized who it was, Shinji's shoulders eased up a bit. This guy was all about putting on a show, a loudmouth with a trashy personality to match. Not someone worth wasting effort on. But Tank Top Tiger didn't handle silence well. Seeing Shinji look at him without saying a word only made him more annoyed. What's wrong? Too ashamed to respond, he jeered, stepping closer with a sneer. I didn't expect to meet the bottom-ranked hero in person. Honestly, I'm amazed you even had the guts to show up and stare at your rank like that. At first, the other heroes nearby didn't react. But once Tank Top Tiger started his usual routine, a few of them chuckled along. There he goes again, bullying newbies. That guy's a real piece of work. Yeah, he always targets the newcomers. No one ever puts him in his place. Careful what you say. The Tank Topper Army's got numbers, and their leader, Tank Top Black Hole, is S-class. Not someone you want to mess with. Some still had a shred of reason, but none dared speak out directly. The Tank Top Army had a wide presence, and even if this guy wasn't strong enough to back it up, the people above him were. Tank Top Tiger himself wasn't weak either. For a C-class hero, being ranked 6th meant he was stronger than most of the people in this building. Shinji didn't care about any of that. He had already seen what he needed to, and now he was ready to move on to more important things. The fact that Shinji continued to ignore him made Tank Top Tiger fume. Hey! You, rookie! I'm talking to you, he barked, stomping forward. Are you seriously ignoring me, Tank Top Tiger, C-class rank 6? Freaking generic bully. What a child. With a scowl, he reached out and slapped Shinji's shoulder, not hard enough to count as an attack but firm enough to send a message. Physical intimidation wasn't exactly encouraged inside Hero Association facilities, but it wasn't punished either, unless it turned into a full fight. But something unexpected happened. His hand didn't connect. It passed right through Shinji. Caught completely off guard, Tank Top Tiger staggered forward, barely managing to stop himself from falling flat on his face. You? He looked up, eyes wide, ready to yell, but stopped cold. Shinji's eyes had changed. His pupils were now blood red, swirling with the ominous pattern of the Sharingan. The cold gaze pierced straight through him, making his heart lurch in panic. Cold sweat gathered on his forehead. It was just a look. Just a single look, but it was enough to completely rattle him. His voice caught in his throat. And the worst part. His hand had actually passed through Shinji's body. Chapter 3, First Encounter with a Monster. Is there anything else? Shinji's voice was calm and cold. And, no. Nothing. Tank Top Tiger, who just moments ago was full of bravado, now stood frozen in fear. His voice trembled as he answered, his arrogance gone. Then get lost. Shoo shoo. Shinji didn't even look at him again. He had never taken the guy seriously from the start. Okay. Still dazed, Tank Top Tiger mumbled the response automatically. By the time Shinji had stepped out of the Hero Association building, the embarrassment hit Tank Top Tiger like a truck. The whole lobby had seen it. Everyone. His face flushed deep red, and the weight of all those eyes on him was suffocating. Swallowed up by a mix of rage and humiliation, he exploded. "What are you looking at? You want to get punched too?" The crowd quickly looked away, pretending they hadn't seen a thing. People shifted awkwardly, pretending to check their phones or read non-existent signs. Even though the room wasn't filled with just C-class heroes, there were a few B-class ones around too. None of them said a word. Other than the Blizzard group, most B-class heroes didn't want to provoke the tank topper army either. Their numbers and their leader's B-class status made them difficult to mess with. Once everyone scattered and the hall returned to normal, Tank Top Tiger finally started to breathe again. But the longer he thought about what had happened, the more furious he became. He, the 6th-ranked C-class hero, had just been humiliated by the guy literally ranked at the very bottom. It was unacceptable. The hand going through that guy's body and those weird glowing eyes all had to be some kind of trick. No way that guy was really untouchable. He must have been off balance or distracted. Yeah, BOI. That's it. Tank Top Tiger clenched his fists and swore to himself that he'd get revenge. He wasn't going to let it slide. Equals. Meanwhile, Shinji had already forgotten about Tank Top Tiger completely. He was casually walking through the streets of Z City, focused on a more pressing issue, hero activities. According to Hero Association rules, a registered activity meant either defeating monsters or subduing criminals. Helping someone with groceries or walking an old lady across the street didn't cut it. That was just basic decency. Not that good deeds were pointless. If you did enough of them, like Mumen Rider, you could still climb the ranks. Mumen wasn't strong by any stretch, but his constant presence and strong sense of justice had earned him massive public support. He was a C-class hero at the top of the rankings, and he'd even turned down a promotion to B-class just to continue working at the ground level. But right now, Shinji didn't care about reputation or climbing the ranks. He just didn't want to be kicked out of the association. That meant he needed to complete one proper hero activity, and soon. If it really came down to it, he had another option. He could use what he jokingly called God's perspective. After all, he knew the One Punch Man world inside and out. He could head straight for the House of Evolution's hidden lab, for example. Defeating monsters wasn't the only way to earn credit. Providing key information could count too. If he gave the association intel that led to a successful operation, it might qualify as a valid activity. Unfortunately, reality was mocking him. Shinji had already been wandering the streets for quite a while, checking alleys, parks, rooftops, anywhere a monster might lurk, and still nothing. He was now experiencing the same crisis Saitama had faced early on, desperately needing to complete a hero activity, but unable to find even a single monster to fight. Z City was usually quiet. If an area crawled with monsters every day, the residents would have moved out long ago, just like in the abandoned zone where Saitama lived. At least Saitama had Sonic drop by every now and then to pick a fight. Shinji wasn't that lucky. Sonic wasn't going to show up out of nowhere to hand him contribution points on a silver platter. Looked like he had no choice but to head toward the House of Evolution after all. Just as he turned to go, a wave of terrified screams erupted from a nearby street. "A monster's here! Run! Where are the heroes? Isn't there a pro-hero nearby? Help!" Shinji's Sharingan lit up, the three tomos spinning to life as he locked onto the source of the panic. In the next instant, he saw it. A massive, grotesque creature with a body that looked like a mutated potato. Well, more like a human whose torso had become a giant potato, while the head, arms, and legs still retained vaguely human features. Even the head was somewhat potato-shaped. For now, Potato Monster seemed like a fitting name. Alert! First encounter with a monster. Reward, 5 points. Before Shinji could act, someone else made a move. Justice Crash. Mumen Rider flew into the scene, riding at full speed on his bicycle. He'd happened to be patrolling nearby and didn't hesitate at all. He leapt from the bike at the last second, letting it crash into the monster from behind. Unfortunately, the potato monster reacted in time. It spun around and slammed the incoming bicycle with its oversized head. Bang! The impact echoed through the street as the bicycle was launched into the air. The monster didn't even budge. That massive potato head was built like a tank. I'm a potato monster, born from slicing too many potatoes at a restaurant kitchen. Who has balls to attack me from behind? The creature let out a roar, chest puffed with arrogance. Everyone, get out of here. I'll hold him off. Mumen Rider shouted, stepping forward with his arms spread wide to shield the civilians. Sweat streamed down his face, but he didn't move from his position. He clearly knew he stood no chance but refused to let anyone else get hurt. That's C-Class hero Mumen Rider, right? Thank God, we've got help. But can he really handle that monster? His sneak attack didn't even leave a scratch. Don't just stand there. Run! The crowd panicked. A few stayed frozen in place while others bolted in different directions. You think a puny little human like you can stop me, the great potato monster? The creature growled. Then it charged, lowering its head to ram through Mumen Rider like a bowling ball aimed at a pin. But right before impact, a figure stepped in front of Mumen Rider. It was Shinji on the way to points farming. Mumen Rider's eyes widened in shock. He hadn't even noticed the guy move. The potato monster didn't stop. Whether it was one person or two, he planned to flatten them both. But just as it closed the gap, Shinji's eyes shifted. The three tomo twisted into the Mangekyo pattern. His right eye, the Kamui eye, pulsed with deep red energy, veins bulging slightly from the strain. In that moment, the potato monster felt an invisible force grip him. His body twisted unnaturally, as if being sucked into a swirling void. Before anyone could react, the entire monster vanished. Just like that. Gone. Alert! You have defeated the wolf-level monster Potato Monster. Reward, 5 points. Alert! First time defeating a wolf-level monster. Additional reward, 5 points. Within the Kamui space, the potato monster was now trapped, helpless. Though it wasn't technically destroyed, the system had already registered the act as a victory. Once something was absorbed into Kamui, it was as good as defeated. Whatever Shinji chose to do with it from that point on didn't matter. It was already his. Chapter 4, Hashirama Cells. Honestly, Shinji could have taken out the potato monster in a much simpler way. His left eye's long-range Kamui could have shredded the thing from a distance without even breaking a sweat. It would have been clean, fast, and far more convenient. But that method had a downside. With so many people watching from afar, someone might have mistakenly thought Mumen Rider was the one who finished the monster off. If the association credited the wrong person, Shinji might still be disqualified for inactivity. It wasn't about fame or recognition for him. He just needed the association to acknowledge that he'd done anything before his deadline expired. So he had no choice but to make sure his actions were clearly visible. He had to beat the monster in a way that people couldn't miss. Even then, it didn't exactly go as planned. What just happened? That monster just disappeared. Yeah. It vanished into thin air. I thought I was seeing things. No, I saw it too. It looked like it got sucked into that guy's eye. I caught a glimpse, but it was so fast, I couldn't see clearly. At least a few of them had noticed what he did. It didn't matter if most didn't understand it. As long as some people could testify that he'd made the monster disappear, the Hero Association would log it as an official hero activity. Are you a pro hero too? Mumen Rider walked up to him, his expression still stunned. He clearly hadn't grasped what happened, only that the monster had vanished and Shinji was standing where it used to be. Yeah. I know you. You're Mumen Rider, right? C-Class Rank 1, Shinji replied with a casual smile. I'm also a C-Class hero, but I'm your opposite. I'm ranked dead last. The man in front of him looked exactly like he did in the anime, helmet, body armor, green gear, the whole deal. You're ranked last? Seriously? Mumen Rider looked visibly confused. Even though he hadn't seen the full extent of what happened, he knew for sure that Shinji had taken care of the threat with ease. Someone who could defeat a monster in a blink shouldn't be sitting at the bottom of the rankings. That kind of strength belonged to a B-class hero at the very least. I only just joined. This was my first hero activity, Shinji explained with a shrug. Until now, I hadn't done anything, so the system stuck me at the bottom. Mumen Rider nodded as it started to make sense. Ah, so that's why. Well, I don't think you'll be stuck down there for long. Then he gave Shinji a sincere nod. The monster's been handled. I'll head back to my patrol. Without another word, he jogged off to retrieve his poor, mangled bike. See you. Shinji watched him go, and despite how brief their interaction was, he found himself respecting Mumen Rider. Unlike Tank Top Tiger, Mumen Rider didn't throw his weight around. The guy had guts and was sincere. After that, Shinji also turned to leave the area. Nobody around noticed anything unusual about him. Not the way he walked, not the expression on his face. But the truth was, he was hurting. His head throbbed, and sharp pain stabbed at his eyes in intervals. Using Kamui twice in quick succession had definitely taken a toll on him. As soon as he got to a quieter spot, he brought up the system panel. Points, 20. He'd gone from 0 to 20 points in one go. Finally, he had something to work with. Without wasting a moment, Shinji opened the points shop and began spending. Alert! The host has exchanged physique times 10. 10 points deducted. Remaining points, 10. Alert! The host has exchanged Hashirama cells times 1. 10 points deducted. Remaining points, 0. Physique plus 10. Hashirama cells plus 1. Current physique, 20. Hashirama cells, 1. While physique covered strength, speed, and endurance, it was the Hashirama cells that intrigued Shinji the most. Those cells didn't just boost his body across the board and enhance his spiritual resilience, improve regeneration, and even help restore ocular power and mental energy. With just one unit, his stamina and eye strain would begin to recover on their own. He wouldn't need to worry about going blind from overusing the Mangekyo Sharingan as long as he didn't constantly push it back to back. That said, a single unit of Hashirama cells wasn't a miracle cure. The effects were subtle for now. Energy and vision would recover, but gradually. Still, it was enough to take the edge off, and since he didn't plan on jumping into another fight right away, the slow pace wouldn't be a problem. Honestly, getting that kind of power for just 10 points was insane. Back in the Naruto world, Madara had to rip flesh from Hashirama himself and cultivate it for years before it could be used to rebuild Obito's body. Shinji basically bought a shortcut through the system. Of course, if he wanted the same level of regeneration Madara gave Obito, he'd need a much larger supply, probably dozens, maybe even hundreds of points worth. The takeaway was clear, he needed more points. A lot more. After that, Shinji returned to the Z-City Hero Association branch to file a report and make sure the monster subjugation was officially logged. In the Hero Association, rankings were determined by accumulated contribution points, but the exact formula was never disclosed. Every activity had to go through formal review. Just defeating a monster wasn't enough. Heroes had to submit reports, and in most cases, civilian witness confirmation was required to validate the event. It reminded him of that infamous Saitama King situation. Saitama would destroy monsters in one punch and walk away without saying a word. King, meanwhile, just happened to be around when it happened. Since civilians had seen King in the area, and he had an old scar from a monster attack, people mistakenly assumed he was the one who beat those monsters. And since Saitama never bothered to report anything or correct anyone, the credit always went to King. That's how the guy with zero combat ability ended up as an S-class hero. Shinji wasn't about to let that happen to him. He submitted his report. Now it was up to the staff to verify the account. Luckily, Mumen Rider walked in at the perfect time. "You're here too?" Filing your report? Want me to be your witness? Spotting Shinji at the front desk, Mumen Rider approached with his usual earnest energy. That would be helpful. I do need a witness. Shinji gave him a grateful nod. All right then. Mumen Rider immediately turned to the staff and gave a full account, confirming that Shinji had defeated the potato monster. Since a civilian had already phoned in a report earlier, the association had enough testimony to wrap up the verification without delay. Alert! The host has completed their first hero activity and resolved the removal crisis. Reward, 10 points. Crisis averted. Chapter 5, Saitama crashes for dinner. Aside from holding onto his hero license, Shinji's rank had finally ticked up. He went from being dead last in C-Class to 351st place. Not a big leap, but it was progress. Considering the potato monster was only a wolf-level threat, the points from defeating it weren't going to skyrocket him up the leaderboard. That's just how the system worked. Hero rankings weren't about raw power alone. The association measured two types of contributions, social and association-based. Social contribution involved the typical stuff, beating monsters, stopping criminals, helping out civilians. Association contribution covered special assignments handed out by the Hero Association itself. So, even if someone pulled off a flashy takedown, it wouldn't mean much if the threat level was low. The higher the enemy's classification, the more it helped with your rank. At least I'm not rock bottom anymore. Shinji muttered, staring at the registry. I saw your name, Shinji. Looks like you don't have a hero alias yet, Mumen Rider commented, glancing over. Once you've been active for a while, they'll assign you one. Yeah, let's just hope it's not something ridiculous. Shinji sighed. Aliases were a double-edged sword. Technically, they were supposed to help civilians remember heroes better. But some association officials clearly didn't take their job seriously. That's how someone like Saitama ended up with the name Cape Baldy. It could have been worse though. Some poor souls ended up in the unofficial Victims of Hero Names Club. Names like Drunkard, Perverted Gentleman Doctor, and Mega Pervert were forever burned into the registry. And public perception. Those names drew mockery and confusion like flies to garbage. Since Mumen Rider had a few errands left at the association, Shinji decided to head home on his own. The sun was already dipping past the horizon, casting a golden glow over Z City. His stomach let out a sharp growl, reminding him he hadn't eaten all day. Time to get groceries. As he reached into his pocket, Shinji found a card tucked into his coat. Must have been another gift from the system. Curious, he asked it mentally. Alert, this card contains a balance of 100,000 yen. Please plan your spending wisely, host. 100,000 yen wasn't bad. Not luxury rich, but solid enough for a decent grocery run. That was about $650. He'd make it stretch. He stopped by the nearest supermarket and browsed the aisles for sales and discounted goods. A couple trays of marked-down beef, a sack of rice, some vegetables, miso, and eggs, nothing fancy, but enough to make a decent dinner. Once outside, Shinji stood by the automatic doors and glanced around. No one in sight. He activated Kamui with his right eye, the familiar sensation of space distortion enveloping him as he vanished into the Kamui dimension. Inside, the eerie stillness of the space greeted him, along with a very agitated potato. The potato monster hadn't just been sitting there idly. Apparently, it had tried every escape method it could think of, and all of them had failed. Now it just looked jumpy and exhausted, twitching at shadows and muttering nonsense. Oh, right. You're still here. Shinji blinked, having momentarily forgotten about his captive. You, the monster shouted, scrambling upright, clearly on edge. It tried to lunge forward, aiming to headbutt him with all its might. Shinji didn't flinch. I'll give you two options, he said casually. 1. You come with me to the Hero Association and turn yourself in. 2. You stay here and rot like a bitch. The potato monster paused mid-charge, his eyes darting around. He wasn't sure if this guy was bluffing or dead serious. Of course, Shinji had no plans to keep the creature locked up forever. With both Kamui eyes in his arsenal, his access to the Kamui dimension was nearly absolute. In fact, anyone stuck in here was essentially in his pocket. He could summon or dismiss them at will. This dimension wasn't just for storage. One of Kamui's most broken features was Shinji's ability to phase through attacks by slipping parts of his body into this space. But that also meant his real body existed inside the Kamui world while doing so, which made him vulnerable if someone ever got in. Still, that scenario was highly unlikely. He didn't need to rely on imprisonment when elimination was always an option. The monster lived right now only because it was more useful that way. He was just like Saitama, unwilling to casually kill monsters that hadn't harmed anyone. In the world of One Punch Man, there actually weren't that many scenes showing monsters visibly slaughtering civilians. Maybe the mangaka just didn't want to draw that kind of thing too explicitly. Either way, Shinji's threat had been purely psychological. And it worked. The potato monster had completely lost his nerve. After trying everything to escape and failing, he truly believed this guy could keep him trapped here forever. I'll go turn myself in. I don't want to be stuck in here, the monster muttered, folding almost immediately. Compared to staying in this dark, eerie, seemingly endless space filled with floating pillars, being locked in the Hero Association's special containment facility sounded like a vacation. At least the monsters there were people you could talk to. This was like solitary confinement in another dimension. Seeing the monster give in so fast, Shinji didn't bother saying more. He warped him straight into the Hero Association's holding facility, leaving behind one very stunned security officer. Job done, Shinji teleported back home. Just as he arrived outside his apartment, Saitama happened to be coming up the stairs. They met right in the hallway, catching each other mid-step. Saitama was holding a little plastic bag with just bean sprouts inside. Probably another discount grab from a corner store. Meanwhile, Shinji had an entire armful of groceries, rice, vegetables, meat, everything for a real meal. The contrast between the two was kind of funny. Saitama glanced at Shinji's haul with a flash of envy, but he wasn't the type to whine or freeload, and he definitely wasn't going to use force just to get food. But before the thought could pass, Shinji spoke up casually. "Are you Saitama? I ended up buying too much food today. Want to come over for dinner?" "Oh, sure," Saitama replied instantly, not even pretending to hesitate. He smiled with that familiar expression, laid back, somehow both simple and unfathomably strong. "I've only got this bag of bean sprouts, though. Hope you don't mind." "It's fine. I actually like bean sprouts," Shinji said with a shrug. "Then I'll take you up on that," Saitama replied, already stepping in like he'd been invited 100 times before. Shinji dropped the grocery bags on the kitchen counter and rolled up his sleeves. "Need help with anything?" Saitama asked, glancing over. "No need. Just have a seat and enjoy some tea." "All right." He nodded and settled down in the living room, pouring himself a cup like he was already part of the household. Shinji moved through the kitchen with smooth precision. Before transmigrating, he'd lived alone and cooked for himself for years, so he wasn't a novice. Now, with the visual clarity and focus granted by the Mangekyo Sharingan, even ordinary tasks felt amplified. Knife work became art. Seasoning hit perfect ratios. Heat control was instinctive. Meanwhile, Saitama lounged on the couch, sipping tea and flipping through TV channels. He caught a faint scent from the kitchen and perked up. "Smells good," he mumbled to himself. "Looks like my new neighbor actually knows how to cook. Though I wonder if he is strong." Honestly, when he first heard someone had moved into the building, he was shocked. The whole complex had been abandoned for ages. But maybe this wasn't a bad thing. Maybe fate had finally decided to send him a decent cook to save him from another sad dinner of sautéed bean sprouts. Also, since he is living here, Shinji ought to be a fighter of some sort. Chapter 6, Crimson Knight Blade. Shinji brought dish after dish out from the kitchen while Saitama quickly stepped in to help. Once everything was laid out neatly on the table, they sat down together and clasped their hands. Itadakimasu. Itadakimasu. They spoke in unison, their voices blending naturally as they performed the usual pre-meal ritual. Halfway through the meal, Saitama leaned back and let out a satisfied sigh. It's been a long time since I had something this hearty. The dishes weren't elaborate: beef curry, stir-fried pork with green peppers, and scrambled eggs with garlic chives. Simple home-style cooking, nothing fancy. But for someone like Saitama, who had been scraping by in near poverty, this was a real feast. Is that so? I'm glad you liked it, Shinji said, smiling. To be honest, I thought you moved here for the same reason I did, because the rent and utilities are dirt cheap. But you don't really seem that broke? Saitama tilted his head, curiosity evident in his eyes. This part of the city was practically abandoned. Though the infrastructure technically still functioned, no one came to collect fees. Water and electricity were available, but no bills ever arrived. Most people stayed far away from the area, and Saitama was one of the very few who were brave enough to live there. Shinji, a transmigrator, was an even rarer case. Don't be fooled by appearances. I don't have much either. But at least I can still earn something, Shinji replied with a slight shake of his head. As a registered pro-hero under the Hero Association, Shinji did receive payment. However, the salary for lower-ranked heroes was so minimal that it barely covered daily expenses. I get that, man. I take part-time jobs here and there when I'm really short on cash. Just enough to stay afloat, Saitama said casually, assuming Shinji meant convenience store shifts or the like. Then again, being a low-tier hero was basically a part-time gig anyway. Dinner eventually came to an end. Both of them had eaten until they were full. Saitama stood up and thanked Shinji again. No problem. You're welcome anytime. Shinji replied warmly. Really? That's awesome, Saitama said with no hesitation. The invitation was genuine, and he saw no reason to refuse it. But next time, I'll try to bring some ingredients and seasonings. Feels weird showing up empty-handed. With that, Saitama headed back to his place, taking his untouched bag of bean sprouts with him. After he left, Shinji sat down on the couch, deep in thought. Based on the current timeline, Saitama probably hadn't joined the Hero Association yet. Shinji hadn't seen his name or the title Cave Baldi on the registry. Even so, there was no doubt that Saitama was already the One Punch Man. His head was already bald, and his strength unmatched. In this world, he was the absolute ceiling of power. And somehow, Shinji had ended up living right next door to him. Still, knowing Saitama's personality, he wasn't the type to kill easily, not people, not even monsters. Even when facing the worst villains, Saitama wouldn't deliver a fatal blow unless necessary. That made him the strongest, yet also the least likely to become an enemy. Shinji's real concern wasn't Saitama, but beings like Boros, the self-proclaimed conqueror of the universe, or Tornado, who never held back and didn't mind collateral damage. I still need to get stronger, fast. The words slipped from Shinji's mouth as he stared blankly ahead. Right now, the only thing he could depend on were his dual Kamui abilities, either by phasing through danger or retreating into his personal Kamui dimension. But he was a transmigrator. How could he be satisfied with mere survival? Self-preservation might be necessary in the short term, but it was never meant to be the end goal. He wasn't aiming to surpass Saitama, there was no need, since Saitama wasn't truly a threat, but at the very least, he needed to become strong enough to stand his ground against someone like Boros. Reaching that level of strength, however, was anything but simple. For now, Shinji could only take it step by step, advancing steadily with patience and effort. The next morning, Shinji headed out early to patrol the residential area of Z City. To some, this might have looked pointless, maybe even a little naive, but in truth, it was the most realistic and effective approach available to him. He couldn't imitate Saitama, who sat around watching television every day, waiting for the news to announce a monster attack before jumping into action. The broadcasts only covered major disasters, usually starting at the demon threat level. Lesser threats, those in the wolf or tiger category, rarely even got a mention. Saitama hadn't yet realized that detail, which explained why he was still glued to the screen day after day. While patrolling the quiet streets, Shinji stopped by a small electronics shop to buy a phone. It was mainly to stay in the loop and receive alerts from the Hero Association. To his surprise, smartphones in this world weren't all that advanced. Most models were still flip phones with physical buttons, and the concept of full touch screens had yet to take hold. Still, he wasn't looking for luxury. He just needed something that worked. After fiddling with the phone and completing his Hero Association registration, he finally gained access to their real-time alert system. A monster has appeared in Central Z City. Preliminary classification, Tiger level threat. Nearby heroes, please respond immediately. No sooner had he finished the setup than the first alert popped up. The location was one he knew well, and with Kamui, he could get there instantly. His Mangekyo Sharingan lit up, and using the ability of his right eye, he phased himself into the Kamui dimension. In the blink of an eye, he stepped back into reality, this time on the streets of Z City's central district. Though the alert didn't include coordinates, Shinji quickly oriented himself by following the sound of screaming in the distance. While panicked civilians rushed away in fear, he moved in the opposite direction, running straight toward the monster. Soon, he spotted the threat. It was a humanoid beetle, its upper body completely transformed while its legs remained human in shape. More precisely, it was a stag beetle man, with a dark exoskeleton and a massive pair of mandibles that looked capable of cutting through reinforced steel. Towering over 2 meters, the monster exuded physical dominance. Ah! A blonde-haired young man suddenly rushed at the creature, gripping an iron rod and swinging it with all his strength. The attack was brave, but... Snap! With a swift movement of its jaws, the monster severed the rod in a single bite. What? The young man's expression froze in disbelief. His legs gave out, and he fell hard to the ground, scrambling backward as terror overtook him. With mandibles that powerful, any human caught between them would be torn in half without resistance. This monster fit the tiger-level classification perfectly. Threats at this level were capable of causing mass casualties if left unchecked. But to Shinji, this was just a mobile bag of points. Defeating a tiger-class monster would earn him significantly more than a wolf-class one. Alert! Host has redeemed Crimson Knight Blade. 10 points deducted. Current remaining points, 0. Shinji opened the system store and exchanged his points for the Crimson Knight Blade. He figured the time had come to use a real weapon. A sleek katana materialized in his grip, its polished crimson blade reflecting the sunlight as if eager for combat. Without wasting another second, he moved. His toes lightly touched the pavement, and his figure blurred before reappearing directly in front of the stag beetle man. The creature blinked in confusion, unsure how this human had closed the distance so quickly. But before it could react, the blade was already in motion. A flash of red streaked through the air, and the scent of blood quickly followed. Chapter 7, C-Class Number 2. With a swift horizontal slash, Shinji severed the stag beetle man's legs. He had immediately pinpointed the monster's weak spot, the legs, since they were the only parts of its body that hadn't undergone transformation. Compared to the rest of the insect-hardened shell, those remaining human limbs were clearly much more fragile. The fuck? The monster only realized something was wrong when his body suddenly dropped and a piercing pain surged through his upper thighs. What? My legs, the stag beetle man wailed in agony. Ding! Host has defeated the tiger-level monster stag beetle man. Reward, 10 points. Ding! First time defeat of a tiger-level monster. Bonus reward, 10 points. With just one strike, the system had already declared victory. Without his legs, the monster was no longer capable of moving effectively and had completely lost his combat ability. With the points secured and the threat neutralized, Shinji had achieved what he came for. He casually flicked the blood off his blade. The blonde-haired young man, still seated on the ground, stared at him in speechless amazement. After a moment, he snapped out of his daze and quickly asked, "You're a professional hero, right?" "Yeah, just an ordinary rookie," Shinji replied calmly. "You were a little reckless earlier, but your courage is impressive. Just try to be more cautious next time, buddy." "Yes. I'll be more careful," the young man nodded earnestly. Shinji then contacted the Hero Association and requested a cleanup team to handle the monster. The blonde youth looked hesitant, clearly struggling with something inside. Once Shinji finished the call, the young man finally spoke. I want to become a hero too. But someone like me. I probably don't have what it takes, right?" "What are you talking about? You just stood up and protected others without hesitation. That alone already makes you a hero." Shinji smiled, didn't forget his heroic speech. "Even if others see you as a delinquent, that doesn't mean you're not capable of becoming a hero." He had already figured out the source of the guy's insecurity. That bright blonde hair said enough. Hearing those words, the young man's eyes lit up. A renewed spark appeared within them. "I get it now. I'll do my best." It was clear he had found his motivation again. Not long after, the Hero Association's response unit arrived and took the Stag Beetle Man away. Later on, the Z-City branch of the Hero Association reviewed Shinji's mission report and updated his official contribution record. His rank on the Hero Registry rose once more. This time, he had handled a Tiger-level threat, which carried far more weight than the earlier Wolf-level incident. According to the Association standards, a Wolf-level monster was about the same threat as 3 C-class heroes or a single B-class hero, while a Tiger-level 1 was equivalent to 5 B-class heroes or even 1 A-class hero. Since Shinji had defeated a Tiger-level monster alone, in terms of pure combat strength, he was already qualified for the A-class. But rankings weren't determined by power alone, they were still heavily influenced by total contributions. So, Shinji's new ranking was set at C-class, rank 2. So that means, if I can challenge and defeat the top of C-class, I'll be promoted to B-class. As he glanced at the updated Hero Registry on the Hero Association's official website, a faint sense of satisfaction settled over him. The association's promotion system was rigid in structure. C-class heroes had to first reach the top of their class before qualifying for advancement. But promotion wasn't automatic. Once a hero reached number 1 in C-class, they could choose to either move up to B-class or remain where they were. This led to a few strange dynamics. For example, the strongest heroes in B-class were sometimes stronger than many A-class heroes. Fubuki and Sweet Mask were perfect illustrations of that imbalance. Fubuki, holding the number 1 spot in B-class, clearly surpassed the combat ability of most A-class heroes, while My Mask, sitting at the top of A-class, was undeniably stronger than a number of S-class heroes. This created a dilemma for ambitious B and A-class heroes. They could only advance by defeating Fubuki or a My Mask, which was easier said than done. Failure meant being stuck indefinitely, and that could be deeply frustrating. Now that Shinji had risen to C-class rank 2, he was eligible to challenge the top-ranking hero. Moving up the ranks quickly was in his best interest, especially since every promotion triggered the system's reward feature. Without a second thought, he headed to the Hero Association's branch office and filed a formal challenge against the current number 1 in C-class. "Shinji, you're still a rookie without an official hero alias. Are you sure you want to challenge C-class number 1, Mumen Rider?" The confirmation came from a dark-skinned young woman acting as the review officer. "I'm sure," Shinji said with a nod. Although his opponent was Mumen Rider, he knew this was a necessary step if he wanted to enter B-class. "Understood. We'll contact Mumen Rider now. Please wait in the lounge." Not long after, Mumen Rider arrived at full speed, having pedaled across the city the moment he heard about the challenge. His strength might have been limited, but his stamina was remarkable. Even after sprinting there by bike, he wasn't even winded. "Shinji! I heard you've climbed up to rank 2 and want to challenge me for a B-class promotion, Mumen Rider called out as he walked in, easily spotting him. That's right, Shinji responded calmly. Then let's do it. I'm ready. Just knock me down whenever you like. At that point, Mumen Rider actually looked eager to be defeated. Ever since he had become the top of C-class, every hero aiming to rise into B-class had to go through him. He had long accepted this role. He knew his own limitations and had no desire to obstruct anyone's advancement. Unlike Fubuki and My Mask, who each had their own private motivations, Mumen Rider stayed at the top of C-class because he genuinely believed he wasn't qualified to join B-class. Fubuki and My Mask, on the other hand, held their ranks for different reasons. My Mask in particular had taken it upon himself to guard the entrance to S-class, where the dangers escalated dramatically. He didn't want heroes who weren't ready to face those deadly threats to suffer meaningless deaths. He also had strict standards for who was morally worthy to join the S-class, believing that people with questionable character had no place among the elite. Alright, Shinji said quietly, deciding that he'd take it easy on Mumen Rider. Following the review officer's instructions, Shinji and Mumen Rider made their way to a large training arena reserved for hero sparring sessions. The officer would serve as their referee. Both participants ready? Then let the match begin. As soon as the words were spoken, Mumen Rider charged forward on his bike. Though he was aware he couldn't win, he still approached the match with full seriousness. For him, it was about dignity and spirit. However, in Shinji's Sharingan-enhanced vision, Mumen Rider's high-speed dash looked slow and predictable. With effortless precision, he dodged and flipped him off the bicycle. Mumen Rider was thrown into the air and crashed to the ground, landing on his back. Without hesitation, he raised a white flag in surrender. Alert! The host has defeated the C-class hero Mumen Rider. Reward, 3 points. Chapter 8, The Tank Top Brothers. Since Mumen Rider's combat ability was even lower than that of an average wolf-level monster, Shinji only received 3 points for defeating him. The system notification didn't surprise him because of the low reward, but rather because it confirmed something new: defeating other heroes could also yield points. Up until now, he had assumed only monsters would generate system rewards. Only now did it become clear that hero battles qualified as well. That was definitely a welcome discovery. It opened up new paths for earning points, adding flexibility to his growth. Victory confirmed. Shinji's challenge is a success, the review officer announced. You okay, pal? Shinji immediately stepped forward to check on Mumen Rider. I'm fine, really. Not injured at all, Mumen Rider said while waving off the concern. He got to his feet quickly, showing no sign of pain or strain. That wasn't surprising in the least. This was the same man who had taken hits from the Deep Sea King and still managed to bounce back. His resilience was legendary, even if his strength wasn't. That's good to hear, Shinji said with a nod, finally at ease. Alright, Shinji, the review officer continued, tomorrow, please report to the Z branch for your promotion interview. At that time, you'll have the choice to either move into B-class or take over Mumen Rider's position as the top of C-class. Understood. Shinji gave a clear nod in response. But just then, an unfriendly voice interrupted. Hold on, hold on! Isn't this just plain cheating? This guy's seriously qualified to be a B-class hero? That irritating voice belonged to none other than Tank Top Tiger. This time, though, he wasn't alone. Standing beside him was a bulky man also wearing a tank top Black Hole, Tiger's older brother and a registered B-class hero. Behind them trailed several others, all apparently summoned by the Tank Topper army to back them up. Tank Top Tiger, Tank Top Black Hole, the review officer said in a flat tone, her expression unreadable. Even if you disagree, you don't have any authority to interfere with the association's promotion system. Oh no, we wouldn't dream of interfering, Tank Top Tiger replied with a smug, self-satisfied grin. We're just here to make sure this cheater gets exposed. By the time the interview happens, the review committee will already know what kind of fraud they're dealing with. After that, they'll make the right decision. The review officer fell silent. She clearly disapproved of what they were doing, but technically, the tank topper army weren't breaking any rules. She couldn't show favoritism to Shinji, no matter how distasteful their tactics were. How could Shinji possibly be cheating? His strength and achievements fully justify a B-class promotion. Mumen Rider, who had been silent up to this point, finally spoke up in defense. Seriously? You, Mumen Rider? Tank Top Tiger sneered at him. You've got no right to talk here. You only ended up C-class number 1 because of a few lucky wins. Everyone knows it. His words were full of scorn, and the look he gave Mumen Rider was one of utter disdain. Everyone knew that, in terms of combat strength, Mumen Rider barely qualified as a C-class hero. What kept him afloat was his relentless dedication, daily patrols, tireless civic duties, and an unshakable sense of justice. But to Tank Top Tiger, none of that mattered. He saw it all as a joke. The idea that someone could top the C-class rankings just by being a good person rubbed him the wrong way. By comparison, Tank Top Tiger considered himself a real hero. And yet, looking at the rankings now, he had slipped to 7th. Shinji's sudden leap to 2nd place had pushed him down another spot. Worse still, Shinji had publicly humiliated him not long ago. That insult still burned. This time, he had dragged his older brother Tank Top Black Hole along specifically to cause trouble. With his older brother behind him, Tank Top Tiger grew even more arrogant. Shinji! You've only been a hero for 7 days, and for the first 5, you didn't do a single thing. You were dead last and nearly got kicked out, he shouted, jabbing a finger at Shinji's face. So explain this, how the hell did you jump from dead last to C-class rank 2 in just a day or two? If that's not cheating, then what is? Am I right, everyone? As he continued tossing out accusations, he stirred the crowd around them. It was obvious the people he brought along were just there to apply pressure, extras meant to shake the review officer and publicly humiliate Shinji. These weren't loyal supporters. They were low-ranking heroes promised small favors or opportunists simply looking for drama. Now that you mention it, yeah, that is weird. One day he's nearly delisted, the next he's up for B-class? I thought the same thing. That kind of promotion speed just doesn't happen. Strong heroes usually start in B or A class right out of testing. This really smells like cheating. If the association lets it slide, it's unfair to the rest of us. Yeah, fuck Shinji. That came out so wrong. With the murmurs of agreement spreading, Tank Top Tiger nodded in smug satisfaction. This is slander. You can't just throw accusations around without proof. Mumen Rider said, stepping forward without a trace of fear, even in the face of the tank topper army. I told you to shut your crap. Want me to knock your teeth out? Tank Top Tiger raised a thick fist threateningly. But Mumen Rider had stood up to the Deep Sea King and didn't even blink. Why would he be intimidated by a loud bully? His eyes remained steady, locked on Tank Top Tiger with open contempt for the childish show. Shinji! What's wrong? You've gone quiet. Feeling guilty, cheater? Tank Top Black Hole finally spoke, arms crossed and voice heavy with menace. His presence was overpowering, and to the others watching, it looked like Shinji was being crushed by invisible weight. But Shinji finally broke his silence, voice calm and eyes cold, treating the scene around him like nothing but background noise. If that's how you want to play it, then I'll just crush the both of you. That should clear things up, right? His voice was smooth, almost casual. Huh? You think you can crush me, Tank Top Tiger? Tiger scoffed like he'd just heard something hilarious. I'm no joke like Mumen Rider. I've got the power of an A-class hero. I'm only stuck in C-class because of bad luck. Shinji didn't even acknowledge the boast. His gaze sharpened slightly, and he said with cool finality, Sorry, I meant the two of you. Come at me together. Chapter 9, I'm in a hurry. It was almost noon, and Shinji still had to get home to prepare lunch. He thought that taking both of them down at once would be quicker and also net him some points. His calm confidence made Tank Top Tiger and Tank Top Black Hole freeze for a second. Are you trying to be funny right now? Tank Top Black Hole stared at Shinji like he was a complete fool. Where do you get the confidence to challenge both me and my brother at the same time? One of Tank Topper Army recovered first and let out a dismissive snort. This is nuts. Even if that whole A-class strength thing is just hype, he's still a legit top 10 C-class hero. And his brother is actually B-class. Exactly. Shinji might not even be able to beat one of them. Come on, he only beat Mumen Rider, and that guy's way too weak to count. It proves nothing. Hot-headed, that's all. Young guys always act tough, but he's about to eat dirt. The crowd wasn't convinced either. Just like the brothers, most of them thought Shinji had lost his mind. Even Mumen Rider began to feel uneasy. Shinji, are you really going to do this? Taking on both of them is dangerous. He knew Shinji was strong, but this wasn't some random monster. The Tank Topper Army were seasoned fighters. 2 against 1 was a serious risk, especially with Tank Top Black Hole, a veteran B-class hero. I'll be fine. Don't worry. Shinji replied with an easy smile. Alright then. Mumen Rider could only hope Shinji would come out on top. Enough talk. Let's get this over with. I'm in a hurry. Shinji's gaze sharpened as it locked onto the Tank Topper Army. You think I'm scared of you? Bring it on! Tank Top Tiger charged forward, completely fired up. Shinji might have rattled him earlier, but now he was sure that it had just been a fluke. Don't go crying when we crush you, kid. You asked for this, Tank Top Black Hole added with a grim chuckle. You talk too much. Shinji's patience was already wearing thin. Acting all smug? I'll teach you some respect. Tank Top Black Hole finally lost his cool and hurled a heavy fist at Shinji. Wait. The review officer, who was still nearby, raised her voice. I'll act as referee again. Both sides, follow sparring protocol. Yeah, hurry up already. Tank Top Tiger looked like he couldn't wait to smear Shinji into the ground. Start! The moment the referee signaled the start, both brothers lunged at Shinji. Their fighting style was brute force through and through, bulky frames, stacked muscles, and unstoppable momentum. Tank Top Tiger stood at 190 centimeters and weighed 102 kilograms. Tank Top Black Hole was even bigger, towering at 220 centimeters with a body mass of 143 kilograms. His grip strength alone reached a monstrous 200 kilograms. Physically, they were far above average. But against Shinji? Still not enough. His protagonist Riz had a way. Host has exchanged for physique plus 23. 23 points deducted. Current balance, 0. Physique plus 23. Physique, 43. In an instant, Shinji's physical power skyrocketed. His strength now exceeded 4 times that of an average adult male. Facing the two in front of him, Shinji had no plans to use either of his Kamui powers. He would take them down using nothing but raw hand-to-hand combat. With only the base-level insight granted by his Mangekyo Sharingan, he could still dominate these two muscleheads without breaking a sweat. To him, their rush was sluggish, their movements laughably easy to read. Every punch they threw was already accounted for before it even began. That was the real strength of his visual prowess, the ability to read and anticipate every move based on subtle cues like muscle tension or the angle of their bodies. The same ability that allowed for ninjutsu replication wasn't magic, just flawless observation. Tank Top Tiger and Tank Top Black Hole came at him from both flanks, but Shinji slipped through the gaps like mist, his expression unmoving and calm. On the other hand, the brothers were already starting to breathe heavily. Close-range brawling drained stamina fast, and missing hit after hit only made it worse. Wait a second, they're getting toyed with, aren't they? Way too fast. Shinji's dodging like a ghost, they can't even touch him. Maybe he's just quick, not strong. That could be it. If he can't hit back, it'll come down to who runs out of energy first. The crowd murmured in disbelief, watching as Shinji danced through the attacks with fluid grace. The longer the fight dragged on, the more frantic the brothers became. Their punches lost coordination, becoming wild and desperate, and their stamina burned away with every wasted movement. Soon, Tank Top Tiger could barely keep his arms up to guard. "Damn it! All you do is dodge, coward," he roared, gasping between heavy breaths as he tried to stall for time. Shinji's voice came low and steady. "Looks like you're done swinging. My turn." His eyes sharpened. When Tank Top Black Hole lunged with a powerful punch, Shinji simply tilted his head. The blow swept past his ear harmlessly. In the same moment, his knee rocketed upward with explosive force and slammed into Black Hole's abdomen. Ugh! The hit folded him instantly, sending him crashing to the ground, curled up and gasping in agony. His face twisted in raw pain. It wasn't just the force that took him down, it was the placement. His liver had been ruptured. In professional fighting, a liver strike wasn't just damaging, it was paralyzing. Pain radiated through the body, making it nearly impossible to recover or move. The host has defeated the B-class hero Tank Top Black Hole. Reward, 8 points. Big bro! Tank Top Tiger shouted in panic as his brother lay twitching on the floor. But before he could even react, crack! A flash of darkness smashed across his vision. His head spun. The last thing he saw was Shinji's fist. Then everything went black. Host has defeated C-class hero Tank Top Tiger. Reward, 4 points. The Tank Top brothers had been demolished in seconds. Silence fell like a blanket over the room. Everyone stared in disbelief at the scene, completely stunned. Victory confirmed. Congratulations, Shinji. The examiner's voice broke the stillness, calmly announcing the result. Only then did the crowd seem to return to reality. Especially those who had sneered at Shinji earlier. Now their faces turned red with embarrassment, and some quietly slipped out of the room without a word, unable to bear the shame. Chapter 10, Codename, Kamui. Did I really see that right? Tank Top Tiger and Tank Top Black Hole both lost just like that? They got completely crushed. The Tank Top brothers didn't even get the chance to fight back. This is bad. We really underestimated him. What if he holds a grudge against us now? After a long silence, the crowd erupted into gasps of disbelief. Incredible! Even a B-class hero like Tank Top Black Hole didn't stand a chance. Even Mumen Rider looked visibly shaken. That's why I told you not to worry about me, Shinji said calmly. You were right. I overthought it, Mumen Rider admitted, scratching his head awkwardly. There's nothing else going on here now, so I'll head out, Shinji said as he turned and walked away. Tank Top Tiger and Tank Top Black Hole were still lying on the ground, and whoever wanted to deal with them was free to do so. The fridge still had enough ingredients, so Shinji didn't bother going shopping. As soon as he stepped through the door, Saitama appeared like clockwork. What's for lunch today? Still got any beef left? Saitama asked. These days, eating meat, especially beef, had become a luxury for him, and he was still thinking about that delicious beef curry from the night before. There's still half left from yesterday. I'll stir-fry the rest in a bit, Shinji replied. Nice. I'll leave it to you then, Saitama said. This time, he had even brought over all the leftover ingredients and seasonings from his place, clearly planning to cook alongside Shinji. Half an hour later, the two of them were sitting at the table having lunch, casually chatting while eating. Isn't this area rumored to have a lot of strong monsters? Aren't you afraid? Saitama asked mid-bite. Though he had dismissed those rumors long ago, having lived here for a while and only ever running into weaklings he could defeat with one punch, the rest of the world still believed in them. Until now, he had never had a neighbor. And not just any neighbor, but one who let him mooch off his cooking. It's not too bad. I am a hero after all. If I'm scared of monsters, then I'm not doing my job properly, Shinji answered naturally. Oh? You're a hero too? That's a crazy coincidence. I'm also a hero, just for fun. Not only neighbors but colleagues too, huh? Ha ha ha, Saitama said with a grin. Hero was his favorite word, and it lit him up every time. You must be pretty strong then. Seems like you've lived here even before I moved in. Those powerful monsters must have had no chance against you, Shinji said casually. Well, I'm alright, I guess. Saitama replied humbly, waving it off. Honestly, those rumors are fake. There aren't any strong monsters around here. Just a bunch of small fries you can take out without trying. So don't worry about the safety of this place. Yeah. Shinji nearly laughed. It wasn't that the monsters were weak, it was just that Saitama was absurdly strong. But he couldn't let that show. He had to act clueless about Saitama's true power or it might raise suspicion. That afternoon, Shinji headed out again and began performing blind jumps using his Kamui space. The way his teleportation worked, he had to move from point A into the Kamui dimension and then emerge at point B. The catch was, if point B was somewhere he hadn't visited before, he couldn't land there precisely. It wasn't like plugging coordinates into a GPS and instantly appearing where he wanted. If he wanted to go somewhere unfamiliar, the only option was to use blind teleportation. But the destination? That was completely random. Still, that didn't make the technique useless. For instance, if he randomly teleported into City A, then from that point on he could warp there with pinpoint accuracy. It was exactly like unlocking fast travel points in a game. So now, Shinji was randomly activating teleportation nodes across all the cities. Alert! Host has arrived in City Y for the first time. Reward, 2 points. When he landed from the first blind jump, he had no idea where he was. Fortunately, the system updated him instantly. In the world of One Punch Man, there were over 20 cities, each labeled with a letter from A to Z. Usually, cities with adjacent letters were also located near each other. City Y, for example, bordered City Z. But hold on, he was getting points for this too? That lit a fire in him. Without hesitation, Shinji jumped back into the Kamui space and began blind jumping again. Next stop. Alert! Host has arrived in City G for the first time. Reward, 2 points. Alert! Host has arrived in City H for the first time. Reward, 2 points. At one point, Shinji nearly got himself killed. He accidentally teleported into the mouth of an active volcano. Beneath him was a bubbling sea of molten lava. He barely managed to react in time and leaped back into the Kamui space, escaping with his life. After several more blind jumps, his mental energy was nearly exhausted. And that was with his stamina stat already at 43. If this had been back when he first got the system, just a few jumps would have knocked him out cold. Points, 22. Shinji glanced at his system panel. With 22 points currently available, it was time to level up. Alert! Host has exchanged for stamina plus 12. 12 points deducted. Remaining points, 10. Alert! Host has exchanged for Hashirama cells times 1. 10 points deducted. Remaining points, 0. Stamina plus 12. Hashirama cells plus 1. Stamina, 55. Hashirama cells, 2. Right now, Shinji's strategy was to prioritize stamina, keeping Hashirama cells as a secondary focus. Not that there was anything else on the list he could trade for yet. With that settled, he headed home to rest. Tomorrow, he planned to continue his blind hopping routine across the cities. The next morning, before he went off to blindly explore and farm more points, there was something important he had to deal with first, the Hero Association's interview. The evaluation was scheduled at the Z-City branch, where several members of the committee would conduct what they called the examination conference. Shinji was escorted by staff to a wide, empty room. The space was plain and sterile, with nothing on the walls and no decorations to soften the atmosphere. Next to him stood a chair, and across from it was a long table where 4 evaluators in suits were seated. Among them was the dark-skinned woman he had seen the day before. "First of all, congratulations on becoming the top-ranked C-class hero," said the man in the center. "Next, about your hero codename, headquarters has already come up with one for you." He paused, then added, "Red Eyes Man." Shinji nearly blacked out right then and there. The name blindsided him completely. Could they really not come up with something better? He would rather die 1,000 more times after being pounded by Tatsumaki than use that name. This was his worst-case scenario, and it had happened exactly as he feared. Clearly, the people in charge of naming were using their toes instead of their brains. "Please don't," Shinji said, already sweating. "Can I apply to change it?" Not satisfied, the man in the suit asked calmly. "It hasn't been officially finalized yet, so you can apply for a change. Once it's confirmed, though, it becomes permanent." "Then I'd like to request Kamui as my hero name," Shinji said without hesitation. Chapter 11, Flying Thunder God Technique. Kamui really wasn't the greatest hero name, but it still beats something ridiculous like Red-Eyed Man. The Hero Association's executives had a strange obsession with slapping man at the end of every name, and Shinji couldn't understand how anyone thought Red-Eyed Man sounded good. "All right, I'll try to argue on your behalf." The man in the suit nodded, then continued, back to the main topic. "Today's interview is being conducted by the 4 of us. As the top-ranked C-class hero, you've earned the right to advance to B-class. Of course, you also have the option to stay in C-class and hold onto your top position. So, Shinji, what's your decision? If you move up to B-class, you'll be starting at the very bottom of the rankings." The suited man confirmed. "I choose to advance," Shinji answered without a hint of hesitation. There was no point in clinging to the C-class. On top of that, heroes in C-class had to submit weekly activity reports, which he found annoying. "I see, so you've decided to move up." The man noted, scribbling something in his notebook. "Then we'll proceed with a few simple questions." The woman sitting on the far right took over, her tone calm and professional. "I'll be recording your answers for the psychological assessment." While Shinji responded to the questions, several people were observing him from behind a one-way mirror located on the upper wall of the room. These individuals weren't part of the regular review team. They were members of the Hero Association's Special Review Committee, a unit tasked with independently overseeing promotions and rank advancements to ensure the process remained fair and free of manipulation. "So that's Shinji. What do you think about those cheating rumors?" His scores during the physical and endurance tests were completely average. "I don't see how someone like that could suddenly show such a dramatic improvement in just a few days. Maybe he was hiding his strength during the earlier tests. But if so, why hold back? The motive isn't clear. There's no evidence to support that theory. Suspicion alone doesn't prove anything. In any case, he chose to advance. Let's watch and see. If he's got what it takes, he'll survive in B-class. If not, he'll face the consequences himself. Don't underestimate how brutal the competition in B-class is. He might also not be hiding his powers but training to get stronger. Maybe he has a ridiculous growth rate to get stronger. Growing stronger, that thought sure marveled all the present. The members continued whispering back and forth, their eyes fixed on Shinji. Of course, Shinji was fully aware that he was being monitored, but he didn't care at all. "We've contacted the advisor. Should we patch him in now?" asked a liaison position behind the committee members. "Yes," one of them responded without looking back. The connection was established smoothly, and a voice came through. "Hey, I'm busy right now. Keep it short." Appearing on the large screen was a striking young man with golden eyes and flowing blue hair. It was none other than Sweet Mask, the top-ranked A-class hero. "Sorry to bother you again. Regarding the top C-class hero's application to advance to B-class, we need your final approval as per standard procedure," Sweet Mask, one of the committee members said. "Promotion to B-class? That's something you guys can decide yourselves. C class, B class, whatever. It makes no difference to me, Sweet Mask replied with clear disinterest. Why, you're not wrong, but this is part of a policy set by the board. To maintain public trust in the association, we still require your input as a consultant, even for relatively minor cases like this. The reviewer said awkwardly, clearly trying to tread carefully. He didn't want to offend Sweet Mask, but he also couldn't ignore the rules laid out by the board. Only heroes ranked A class and above require my input. Heroes at that level carry real weight in society, and if someone in my tier does something wrong, it reflects on me as well. But B class. Sweet Mask looked like he was about to launch into one of his usual rants about B and C class heroes, but he caught himself and shrugged. Whatever, I'll just take a quick look. Finally, the person currently being interviewed is Shinji, the top-ranked C-class hero, though he doesn't have a hero name yet, one of the special review committee members quickly summarized before switching the screen to show a live feed of Shinji. His eyes look a bit unusual, but that's it. As long as he's not involved in any scandals, just let him move up. Sweet Mask gave his final word without hesitation, then ended the call and returned to whatever he had been doing before. By the time the promotion process finally wrapped up, the entire morning had passed. Shinji's advancement was now official. In his hand was a new certificate, an approval of promotion, confirming that the Hero Association had formally allowed him to move up to B class. For the moment, he sat at the very bottom of the rankings, B class, rank 101. Alert! The host has advanced to B class. Rewards, 10 points. Flying Thunder God Technique is granted. Flying Thunder God Technique? Hearing the system's notification, Shinji paused in surprise. He had expected to receive a standard reward like points for ranking up, but this was something else entirely. The Flying Thunder God Technique was no ordinary ability, it was an S-rank space-time ninjutsu. Like Kamui, it manipulated space and time, and while the two techniques overlapped in concept, each had distinct advantages. Double Kamui was certainly more flexible in many ways, but that didn't mean Flying Thunder God was inferior in Shinji's hands. He had already experienced how valuable Kamui could be, and now this technique gave him even more tools to work with. After returning home, Shinji got to work preparing lunch. As usual, Saitama showed up right on cue, dropping by to mooch a free meal without hesitation. During his afternoon break, Shinji sat down to examine the Flying Thunder God technique more closely. Thanks to the system, he didn't need to go through a learning phase, he had already mastered it completely the moment he received it. He could now place what the system called a Flying Thunder God mark, more accurately, a spiritual imprint, on any object or person. Because Shinji lacked chakra, the system had adjusted the technique to operate using spiritual energy instead. With a single mark placed, Shinji could teleport to its location instantly. In theory, this version of teleportation was just as fast, if not faster, than Kamui's, since Kamui required routing through a space-time dimension as a middle layer. Flying Thunder God, on the other hand, operated without any such delay. Still, Kamui's greatest strength wasn't just teleportation. Its real power lay in its intangibility, the ability to phase through physical attacks and crush enemies over long distances with spatial distortions. That made Flying Thunder God and Double Kamui two entirely different tools in Shinji's arsenal. Rather than replacing one another, they worked in tandem, each covering the other's weaknesses. This synergy was especially noticeable over long distances. In close combat or within line of sight, it was harder to determine which was faster. Double Kamui could open two portals simultaneously. For instance, Shinji could absorb himself with his right eye while creating an exit portal elsewhere with the left. That dual-channel transfer made Kamui's instantaneous movement formidable. The full version of Kamui was also far quicker than the single-eye variant. Even so, something still felt incomplete. With a subtle frown, Shinji opened the points shop to check its contents, and immediately noticed several new items available for exchange. Physical Constitution. Hashirama Cells. Blade of Red Knight. Fourth Hokage's Kunai. Rasengan. Chapter 12, Silver Fong Bang. As expected, the points shop had updated with new items, 2, to be exact. The appearance of these items was clearly triggered by Shinji obtaining the Flying Thunder God technique. Both the kunai and the Rasengan could synergize with his teleportation jutsu to form entirely new techniques. Combinations like Flying Thunder Slash, Flying Thunder God Level 2, or even absurd-sounding names like Rasengan Flash Super Will Dance Howl 3 style were now possible in theory. The only technique Shinji couldn't execute was the Flying Thunder Mutual Instantaneous Spin technique, a maneuver that required 2 Flying Thunder God users working in perfect synchrony, as Tobirama and Minato had jointly performed it. That wasn't something he could replicate alone. Item 4 details, 4th Hokage's special kunai. Identical to those used by Namikaze Minato. Can be inscribed with the Flying Thunder God seal. This item is redeemable in unlimited quantity. Cost, 0.1 points, per kunai. Item 5 details, A-rank ninjutsu, Rasengan. Also known by its ludicrous full name Glowing Ice Lolly Spiral Smash Jiraiya Twin-style technique. Condenses spiritual energy into the palm, compresses it into a concentrated mass, and creates a highly destructive sphere. The technique is similar in function to the tailed beast's bomb. Variations and advanced forms must be developed independently. Cost, 50 points. After reviewing both, Shinji thought the 4th Hokage's kunai was surprisingly affordable. The Rasengan, however, was expensive. He currently only had 10 points and decided it was wiser to save rather than spend impulsively. There would be time later to purchase what he really needed. With his initial research into the Flying Thunder God technique complete, Shinji resumed his spatial teleportation across the map to accumulate points. Alert! The host has arrived in City A for the first time. Reward, 2 points. Alert! The host has arrived in City F for the first time. Reward, 2 points. He was unlocking more and more cities at a steady pace, but blind teleportation always carried inherent danger. The last time he'd randomly teleported, he ended up at the edge of a volcanic crater. This time, he landed in the middle of a martial arts dojo. Several individuals were training inside, including some immediately recognizable faces, Garu, Sharanko, and Spring Mustachio. Shinji instantly realized where he had ended up. He had accidentally warped into Bang's dojo. Turning his head, he spotted an elderly man with a solid build, white hair, and a slightly hunched posture, hands calmly folded behind his back. It was none other than Silver Fong Bang, the third-ranked S-class hero. Alert! Host has arrived at Bang's dojo for the first time. Reward, 2 points. Where did you come from? Bang asked, his eyes narrowing. A blood-eyed youth had appeared without warning, and he hadn't sensed a thing. That level of stealth, or speed, was enough to trigger his instincts. Had the young man's movements already reached a level that slipped past even Bang's perception? Everyone in the dojo froze mid-training, their attention drawn to Shinji. A mixture of confusion and suspicion showed on their faces. Sorry, I was testing out a certain ability. I'll leave right away. Didn't mean to cause a disturbance. Ciao, Shinji said, bowing slightly in apology. Just as he was about to teleport back into Kamui's dimension, Bang raised a hand to stop him. Wait a minute. Since you're already here, why leave so quickly? He said with an inviting tone. Why not stay and chat for a bit? Shinji thought for a moment before accepting. I mean, we are talking about a top-class S-class hero here. Well then, I'll gladly accept the offer, Shinji replied with a polite nod. You lot, keep training. Don't let me catch you slacking off just because I'm not watching. Bang gave a stern but brief warning to his students, then led Shinji into the reception room. Please, have a seat, Bang said with polite composure. Thank you. Shinji took the seat across from him, settling in calmly. I'll be straightforward. Are you interested in joining my dojo? Bang asked directly, even using hand gestures to emphasize his offer. Have you heard of Water Stream Rock Smashing Fist? Clearly, Shinji's silent and sudden appearance had made a strong impression. The old master had instantly developed an interest in mentoring him. Shinji paused for a moment before answering, "Sorry, I'm already a professional hero under the Hero Association. And yes, I've heard of your reputation, Silver Fong. It's an honor to meet you." "I see, what a shame," Bang said with a trace of disappointment in his voice. He understood that active heroes didn't have much time for formal martial arts training. Forcing someone into his dojo wasn't his way, so he dropped the idea of taking Shinji as a student. "But you're a hero too. Are you A-class now?" "I don't recall seeing you among the S-class heroes I know." "I'm not. I was just promoted to B-class. I'm a newcomer." Shinji shook his head slightly, keeping his tone modest. "Oh." Bang furrowed his brows slightly, second-guessing his earlier judgment. Just based on Shinji's incredible speed and stealth, he would have assumed the young man was already in A-class, maybe even S-class. But to hear he had only just advanced to B-class, and from C-class no less, didn't make any sense. Even civilians with decent strength didn't usually start at the bottom. The Hero Association's entry process wasn't that demanding. The physical tests were straightforward, and the written portion was so basic that even an old man like him could score well. For someone young and sharp, it should have been even easier. Well, except for Saitama. Out of a total of 50 points on the written exam, Saitama had scored just 21. His answers had been far too blunt and literal. For instance, on the question, "You encounter a monster stronger than you holding multiple hostages in a remote area. What do you do?" Saitama's response, "Just punch them." No matter what the question was, his answer was always the same, "Just punch them." For Saitama, that approach was actually valid. But the grading was based on what a regular hero should do in realistic circumstances. That's what made Shinji's results so puzzling. A decent written score plus average physical ability should have placed him above C-class. Barely scraping past the 70-point threshold suggested he hadn't done well physically. "By the way, earlier you said you were testing an ability. Is it a martial art? Or more like a superpower?" Bang asked with growing curiosity. "More like a superpower," Shinji replied casually. In truth, double Kamui wasn't a superpower or a martial art in the traditional sense. But in the world of One Punch Man, anything outside conventional techniques usually got lumped under superpower, so it was the easiest label to use. "I see," Bang nodded thoughtfully. He now assumed the red-eyed youth was probably a psychic-type hero with average physical capabilities. That would explain the underwhelming test results and made him seem like an even better candidate for strengthening his body through martial arts, especially water stream rock smashing fist. Ahem. Bang cleared his throat, his tone becoming more serious. "Even if you're already a full-time hero, if you ever find the time or interest, you're welcome to visit my dojo. I'd be happy to teach you water stream rock smashing fist. It's a powerful martial art that can complement your abilities." "I appreciate the kind offer, Master Bang. I'll give it some thought," Shinji said with a polite smile, clearly declining while remaining respectful. It wasn't that he looked down on the technique, quite the opposite. He would love to learn the legendary martial arts. But his focus was elsewhere for the time being. What truly fascinated him were things like the Sharingan, Hashirama cells, the Flying Thunder God technique, and the Rasengan. His eyes were on abilities that went beyond the physical, such as the Rinnegan, Susanoo, or even Buddha on the summit. So yeah, with the system, he could grind and get stronger rather than learning martial arts with years of practice. Chapter 13, Flying Thunder God Mark. "Is that so?" Bang said with a small nod, dropping the matter. "By the way, what's your hero name?" "I don't have one yet," Shinji replied. "The higher-ups haven't finalized it. For now, they're probably going with Kamui." He then added casually, "You can just call me Shinji." There was no way he'd mention that absurd suggestion, red-eyed man. Just thinking about it made him cringe. "Oh, I see. Then I'll call you Shinji for now," Bang said with a short laugh. "I'm Bang, no need for the Silver Fong title." "Understood, Master Bang. Shinji nodded respectfully. The two of them sat and chatted over tea for a while longer, trading light conversation. But before long, it was time for Shinji to move on. Master Bang, I need to continue testing my abilities, so I'll be heading out now. Fine here. Take care, Bang replied with a nod. The next moment, Shinji activated double Kamui right in front of him. 1 second he was seated, and the next, he vanished. There was no build-up, no flash, no sound, just disappearance. Only a faint ripple in the air remained where he'd been, and that too dissipated almost instantly. Bang, with his sharp S-class perception, barely caught the spatial disturbance. Any other person wouldn't have noticed a thing. That ability, it's truly impressive, Bang murmured to himself. If he can increase his physical strength as well, it won't be long before he joins the S-class ranks. He sighed with genuine admiration. Elsewhere, Shinji had already made up his mind to strengthen himself further. Raw power, speed, and durability, these were still areas he could push forward. Without hesitation, he opened the system menu and used his points. Alert! Host redeemed physical constitution times 20. 20 points deducted. Remaining points, 0. Physical constitution plus 20. Physical constitution, 75. Refreshed and empowered, he returned to unlocking new cities, continuing his mission to expand the map. Alert! Host has arrived in City E for the first time. Reward, 2 points. Alert! Host has arrived in City X for the first time. Reward, 2 points. He spent the rest of the afternoon actively teleporting, adding more cities to his visited list. But the pool of unexplored locations was getting smaller. With every successful unlock, the odds of landing somewhere new with a random jump decreased significantly. There are fewer than 10 cities left to unlock. No point gambling anymore. I'll just wait and let the opportunities come naturally. He made a mental note and shifted strategies. From that point on, Shinji kept a close eye on the Hero Association's alert system via his phone. Every time a monster was reported in a city he'd already visited, he could act instantly. Monsters sighted in the outskirts of City Y, preliminary threat level, Tiger. Nearby heroes, please respond and neutralize the threat immediately. Shinji had been patrolling the streets of City Z when the notification appeared. The alerts didn't come often, since nearby heroes quickly took down most monsters or never reached the level where a public alert was needed. But this time, the call went out, and City Y was already within his accessible teleport range. Without wasting a second, Shinji opened a Kamui portal and shifted space. Just as he warped into City Y, the Hero Association updated the monster's coordinates. Shinji immediately zeroed in on the location. With practice control, he began opening spatial rifts directly in his line of sight, chaining them together across rooftops and streets. His movement became a sequence of instantaneous flashes, leaping across long distances without leaving a trail. In mere seconds, he reached the battle zone. At the same time, a few nearby heroes had also reached the scene. Judging by their energy and gear, they appeared to be C-class and B-class, hardly a lineup suited for a Tiger-level threat. Generally, it took 5 B-class heroes or 1 A-class hero to deal with a monster of this tier, and the 3 present were clearly struggling. They were B-class, Pointhead Man; C-class, Edgy Student; C-class, Snip and Clip. Pointhead Man had a sharply conical skull and a short, bulky frame packed with raw muscle. He wielded an enormous warhammer with surprising speed. Edgy Student looked like an angry teenager, with a school uniform, a mushroom haircut, thick glasses, and acne covering his face. His weapon? A compass, though clearly not the kind used for math class. Snip and Clip had greasy, wild hair that looked like it hadn't seen shampoo in weeks. His weapons of choice were a flashlight and a pair of scissors, both seemingly useless until he actually started fighting. The enemy they faced was something that looked like a rosebud but was far more grotesque. It had the muscular body of a large dog, but its head was replaced by a monstrous black rose. This was no delicate blossom, its petals were lined with rows of razor-sharp teeth, like a carnivorous flower straight from a nightmare. It was an animal, not a plant, but every part of it screamed unnatural. "Let's go together!" Pointhead Man shouted, charging forward and swinging his massive warhammer straight at the monster. With a deafening crash, the hammer slammed into the side of Rosehound's face, cracking off one of its many teeth. But that was all. The beast was still full of sharp fangs and barely even flinched. Edgy Student and Snip and Clip took this as their cue to move in, thinking the hit had at least dazed the monster. They rushed in from opposite sides. Rosehound's mouth opened wide, then snapped shut with terrifying force. In one clean bite, it swallowed both of them at once. However, having taken in two people at the same time, it choked. Edgy Student and Snip and Clip became lodged halfway down its throat, legs kicking outside its mouth as they flailed to free themselves. The monster couldn't spit them out, but it also couldn't finish swallowing them. "Hang on, I'll save you." Pointhead Man saw an opportunity and raised his hammer again. He brought it crashing down on Rosehound's head, trying to stun it into submission. Unfortunately, both heroes were still in its mouth. The blow rocked the monster's skull, but it merely rattled the two trapped heroes unconscious instead of knocking it out. Their kicking weakened, bodies going limp, and now that their resistance had stopped, Rosehound had a real chance of finishing the swallow. "What the hell?" Pointhead Man scratched his head, dumbfounded. Somehow, he had just made things worse. Just as Rosehound tilted its head back for one final gulp, Shinji arrived, with perfect timing. This was a good opportunity to test the Flying Thunder God technique in live combat. Without hesitation, he rushed forward, grabbed one leg from each of the two heroes stuck in the monster's mouth, and activated the jutsu. No hand seals were needed. With an instant burst of spatial energy, he teleported all three of them to a nearby location he had marked earlier. At the same moment, his hand lightly brushed the top of Rosehound's head, and he left behind a new mark. Unlike the traditional Flying Thunder God seal used by Tobirama or Minato, Shinji's version was based on his Mangekyo Sharingan, a unique black spiral pattern burned into space itself. Then, right on top of Rosehound's skull, the air shimmered with distortion as a black Mangekyo Kamui symbol emerged in a flash, pulsing with ominous energy. Chapter 14, That Woman. Edgy Student and Snip and Clip were still groggy after being rescued. Their limbs twitched weakly as they tried to regain awareness, but it was clear it'd be a while before either of them was back on their feet. "Keep an eye on them," Shinji said to Pointhead Man, his tone calm but commanding. "Oh, I will," but, before Pointhead Man could finish his sentence, Shinji vanished. Gone, just like that. Pointhead Man blinked, glancing around in confusion, then spotted him again. Shinji was now standing exactly where the monster had been just seconds ago. His eyes widened in disbelief. The tiger-level monster was gone. More than gone, it had been decapitated, its massive head lying at Shinji's feet, separated cleanly from the body. Yeah, Flying Thunder God was simply too fast. Shinji had teleported directly to the mark he'd placed on Rosehound's head and, in one fluid motion, slashed through its neck with the Scarlet Knight blade. There had been no resistance, no reaction from the monster. One teleport, one clean strike, it was over. Alert! Host has defeated the tiger-level monster Rosehound. Reward, 15 points. Apparently, this particular monster had been stronger than average. Shinji remembered the last tiger-level opponent he took down had only rewarded 10 points. Rosehound had been tougher, a solid 15 points worth of threat. That made sense. Tiger-level monsters weren't uniform. They had their own internal hierarchy, low, mid, high, and peak tiger. The gap between the lowest and highest could be as wide as the gap between two whole threat classes. Rosehound was likely a mid-tiger at the very least. And, please bear with this cliché leveling system. With the fight over, Shinji casually warped back to Pointhead Man, still holding the severed head. They should be fine. Just a little dazed from when you slammed them. He gave a quick nod toward the unconscious duo, then disappeared again without waiting for a response. Pointhead Man was left alone, stunned. He stared at the spot where Shinji had been just moments ago, still holding his warhammer like he didn't know what to do with it anymore. Who the hell was that guy? An A-class hero? Maybe even S-class? He had just watched a tiger-level monster get taken out in less than a second. The monster hadn't even had time to roar. It was just alive one moment, and then its head was on the ground the next. Sure, B-class heroes were capable of defeating tiger-level threats solo. That was why the rule of 1 tiger equals 5 B-class was only a general guideline. There were exceptions. Stronger heroes, smarter tactics. But to finish it that fast? Without even breaking a sweat? That wasn't normal. Even B-class rank 1, Blizzard of Hell, might not have made it look that effortless. Pointhead Man didn't have the time or energy to start guessing at Shinji's identity. His teammates were still unconscious. Once they came to, they were probably going to blame him for the failed assault and the hammer blow that nearly got them eaten. Well, time for more work. In the blink of an eye, Shinji returned to the Z-City branch, still carrying Rose Hound's severed head. He had previously left a Flying Thunder God mark at this location, allowing him to warp back instantly. Unexpectedly, the head in his hand suddenly spoke. Hold on a sec. Could you maybe bring my body too? Huh? You're not dead yet? Shinji raised an eyebrow. My head can survive for a while even without the body, but I won't last forever. I don't want to die. Rosehound's voice was oddly sincere, filled with a genuine will to live. Fine. If you behave, I won't kill you. Without hesitation, Shinji teleported back to City Y, retrieved the rest of the monster's body, then instantly returned to the Z-City branch again. Thanks, Rosehound muttered with surprising gratitude. Shinji casually handed over the monster, head reattached, to the review officer on duty. However, he would be surprising a lot more people. The review officer's face instantly went pale. Why you brought a living monster in here? No worries, it's behaving. Look, here, shake hands. Shinji gripped the creature's paw like he was introducing a pet. For the sake of survival, Rosehound obediently lifted one front paw and shook Shinji's hand without protest. I will believe in you. Seeing this strange display of cooperation, the review officer hesitated, then sighed. She wasn't entirely convinced, though. Just to be safe, Mr. Shinji, I hope you'll personally escort this monster to the underground prison. It's fine, really, Rosehound interjected helpfully. My head just got chopped off a while ago. It hasn't healed yet. If someone taps me on the skull, it might fall off again. To demonstrate, the monster lightly flicked its own head with a paw. The head tilted alarmingly and had to be manually adjusted back into place. Ha, ha. The review officer's laugh was a bit dry and awkward, showing she wasn't quite reassured. Eventually, she ordered the staff to separate the head and body again before hauling Rosehound down to the underground holding facility, just in case. With another tiger-level threat taken down, Shinji's B-class ranking had improved. He was no longer dead last. His rank had risen from 101 to 56. It wasn't an astronomical leap, but in the competitive field of hero rankings, it was a major climb. Most B-class heroes weren't capable of defeating tiger-level monsters solo. The benchmark usually required teams or backup. So for Shinji to handle one by himself, as a newcomer, meant he'd already surpassed half the B-class roster in terms of real contributions. In contrast, Saitama's rank remained stagnant. That was mostly his own doing, he almost never reported any of his monster takedowns. During the 3 years he fought monsters before joining the association, not one was officially registered under his name. Most of those victories had accidentally been credited to King, who had passively climbed his way to S-class rank 7 thanks to sheer coincidence and an overwhelming aura. Even now, after joining the association, Saitama didn't bother chasing recognition. When he defeated Boros, the association hadn't even realized it had happened. Shinji, however, reported everything for his end. He didn't mess around when it came to claiming system rewards. He might joke, tease, or act casual, but when it came to progress, he was all business. After all, just by moving up to B-Class, he'd received 10 points and the Flying Thunder God technique and S-Class Spacetime Ninjutsu. Who knew what kind of bonus he might get when he reached A-Class? Or S-Class? For now, Shinji didn't leave the Hero Association building. He remained in the lobby, checking the digital hero registry for ranking updates and recent activity. Just then, he heard someone call out behind him. "You must be that Shinji guy who just got promoted to B-Class, right? I heard you took down another tiger level today." "That's insane, doesn't sound like a newbie at all." "Yeah, and you even taught Tank Top Black Hole and Tank Top Tiger a lesson. That's some scary strength, man." Shinji turned and saw two unfamiliar heroes approaching him. "I'm Shinji," he replied calmly with a polite nod. "Shinji, huh? That your real name? Guess you don't have a hero alias yet, but it makes sense, you're new." One of them stepped closer and lowered his voice slightly. "Since we ran into you, here's a bit of advice. New B-Class heroes should always pay a visit to B-Class Rank 1, Blizzard of Hell. Otherwise, that woman might make things difficult." Chapter 15, Saitama's Request. "Blizzard of Hell, what's the deal with this woman you're talking about?" Shinji asked, keeping his expression neutral. He was faking it, of course. He already knew exactly who Blizzard of Hell was. Just who doesn't know the best girl, arguably, of the anime? But for now, he wanted to come across like a clueless rookie. "Oh, she's a real piece of work. That woman's terrifying. She suppresses any newcomer who steps into B-Class, and she even forces higher-ranked B-Class heroes to join her Blizzard group. Refuse, and you can expect pressure, sabotage, or flat-out threats. Yeah, we both had to kiss up to her just to survive after ranking up. If we hadn't, we would have been crushed before our names even appeared on the charts. These days, Blizzard Group basically owns the entire B-Class. The only exceptions are a few backed by the Tank Topper Army." The two B-Class heroes shared their cautious warnings, voices low and full of tension. "I see. Thanks for the heads up. I'll keep that in mind." Shinji nodded politely. Not that he cared at all. No matter how overbearing she was, he wasn't afraid of someone like Blizzard. "Good, just remember what we said. You've only just been promoted, so the Blizzard group probably hasn't noticed you yet. You've got a small window to approach them yourself. But once they decide to come after you, it's too late to play nice." They kept trying to push him toward submission, as if it was the only way to survive, but Shinji didn't respond. He had already tuned them out. "Well then. I'll be heading off, then." He nodded again, then turned away without hesitation. Looks like he got the message. Good. That's one rookie who won't get stomped. Still, the problem is just how much Blizzard's influence has grown. Nobody dares oppose her. Not even the Tank Topper Army wants that fight. "Well, I heard something once." "Come closer." One of them leaned in. Supposedly, S-Class Rank 2, Tornado of Terror, is her older sister. And Blizzard herself isn't weak either. That's why nobody dares challenge her. "You serious? She's Tornado's sister?" The other man looked shocked. That explains a lot." They looked around to see if Shinji was still within earshot, but he was already gone. "Huh? Left? When?" He vanished, just like that, in a blink. Meanwhile, Shinji had already returned home via Flying Thunder God teleportation. For short-distance or known-location travel, he preferred that over Kamui. It consumed less mental energy, came with zero side effects, and had none of Kamui's spatial warping fatigue. He only needed to focus for a moment. That evening, as usual, Saitama showed up for dinner. Over their meal, the conversation drifted naturally toward hero work. "I mean, I became a hero just for fun, but lately, something feels off, Saitama said while lazily scooping up some rice. He'd sensed it for a while, a nagging, hollow feeling, but since hero work had always been just a hobby, he hadn't taken it seriously enough to examine. Now, though, it was beginning to weigh on him. How off? Are we talking about low pay? Because you honestly do seem broke, Shinji replied, sounding casual and friendly, maintaining the image of a normal association employee. He wanted to play this carefully. Most people assumed Saitama was already part of the Hero Association. No one ever guessed he didn't even know it existed until recently. Pay? What pay? Saitama looked genuinely confused. Sometimes people give me food. That's about it. He tilted his head, expression unreadable, like he'd just realized he was supposed to be getting paid this whole time. Wait, aren't professional heroes employed by the association? Even the bottom-tier ones get a monthly check, small as it is. Shinji raised a brow, acting like this was basic knowledge. Professional hero? What's that supposed to mean? Saitama looked completely blank. Shinji froze for a moment, then leaned forward. Hold on, you're not saying you don't even know what the Hero Association is? He already knew that Saitama was still clueless about the association, but he had to pretend to be shocked to keep up the act. Saitama went quiet for a moment, then confessed flatly, I have absolutely no idea. Well, about 3 years ago, Shinji began, a man who called himself a hero saved the grandson of a rich guy named Agoni from a monster. To repay him, Agoni used his fortune to set up the Hero Association. Most of the systems in place now were designed by him personally. Saitama blinked as the story clicked into place. I see. He nodded slowly, unaware that he was that man who'd saved Agoni's grandson and unknowingly changed the world. So you're already a professional hero under this association thing? He asked. Exactly. I'm officially registered in the Hero Registry. That means I'm recognized, get a base salary, and earn bonuses depending on mission performance, Shinji explained. There are rankings for power, popularity, and contribution. The more famous ones even have fan clubs. He continued, these days, when people talk about heroes, they usually mean someone affiliated with the Hero Association. If you call yourself a hero without registering, most folks will just think you're some eccentric guy in cosplay. He glanced at Saitama meaningfully. So, you might want to consider joining. Saitama didn't answer right away. His face stiffened slightly, expression turning blank as realization hit him. That nagging sense of emptiness he'd been feeling, it all made sense now. He wasn't recognized. No one knew who he was. His efforts, however genuine, were invisible to the world. That's what had been bothering him. Not a lack of strength, but a lack of acknowledgement. Money, perks, popularity, none of that really mattered. As long as he could eat and keep a roof over his head, he was good. He'd always done odd jobs here and there. He didn't care about fame. But still, it felt wrong to be completely ignored. And if there was a way to be seen, to be counted, why not take it? Screw it, Saitama muttered, setting his chopsticks down. Shinji, let's go to the Hero Association together tomorrow. His tone was more serious than usual. He wasn't asking for much. He just didn't know where to go or how the system worked. And frankly, he was bad with directions. He needed someone to show him the way. Sure thing, Ball DY. Shinji replied without hesitation, and Saitama didn't catch the last word. Alert! Mission triggered. You have accepted Saitama's request. Reward, 10 points. The moment the system chimed in, Shinji didn't even blink. He'd already expected it. The system had told him long ago that connecting with major characters would bring rewards. Not that he was doing it just for that. Whether it was Saitama, Bang, or Mumen Rider, Shinji genuinely liked guys like them. Chapter 16, S-Class Certification. The next day arrived, and both Shinji and Saitama were up early. They had agreed to head to the Hero Certification exam venue first thing in the morning. Since the Hero Association's Z branch wasn't located at the exam site, candidates needed to travel to the designated testing grounds. Naturally, they went on foot. Saitama couldn't be bothered to fly, that he can't, and Shinji wasn't interested in showing off by using dual Kamui or flying Thunder God in front of him. As they walked, Shinji took the opportunity to explain the exam rules. The Hero Certification exam consists of 2 parts, a written test and a physical fitness test. The total score is 100 points. You need at least 70 to pass and become a professional hero. So I just need to get 70, right? Saitama asked, nodding in his usual laid-back way. 70 is enough, sure, but the higher the score, the better, Shinji replied. Professional heroes are divided into ranks: C class, B class, A class, and S class. S class is the highest, C class the lowest. If you score a perfect 100, you'll be certified as S class immediately. Compared to a C class hero who barely passed with 70, an S class hero draws way more attention and fame. You'll be an overnight sensation. Oh, got it. Then I'll try to score higher, Saitama replied casually, still looking unconcerned, as if scoring high was no big deal to him. He wasn't particularly interested in the whole C class or S class label, but he did want to raise his public profile this time. According to Shinji, getting a higher rank at the start would help, so he figured he might as well aim for the top score. The physical part is pretty straightforward, Shinji added, but you should pay more attention to the written exam. He warned Saitama with an example. Let's say you're walking down a crowded street and suddenly run into a monster that's much stronger than you. What should you do? This kind of question wasn't considered cheating. The written exam was rarely difficult, and even if it wasn't easy, the format hardly ever changed. Genos had mentioned that full marks on the written test were common, and only Saitama-sensei had managed to score just 21 points. Out of those, 1 point was for sense of justice, and the remaining 20 probably came from default partial credit. Still, an answer like "just chop them up" wasn't technically wrong either. Just chop them up, Saitama answered sincerely with a blank but honest smile, without a second thought. Shinji fell silent. Yep, that's exactly the kind of answer I expected from Saitama-sensei. For an overpowered character like Saitama, general common sense doesn't even apply to them. How is it? Was that the right answer? Saitama asked, genuinely confident in his response. Wrong, Shinji said, shaking his head. Huh? Then what's the right answer? Saitama asked, puzzled. Let me put it this way, Shinji said patiently. You might be strong, Saitama, but this test isn't designed for people like you. It's made for the general public. Not everyone is a powerhouse, right? Saitama tilted his head slightly as Shinji continued. So you need to answer from the perspective of someone weaker. From the perspective of the weak. Saitama repeated, pausing to think. But he hadn't always been this strong. He'd been bullied in school and knew what it felt like to be powerless. It was exactly because he had once been weak that he wanted to become strong. And then he went bald and became invincible. Remembering how it felt to be weak, Saitama seriously considered how to answer the question. If it's from the perspective of someone weak, then I suppose the best approach would be to stall the powerful monster as long as possible, buying time for nearby civilians to escape, he said hesitantly. His tone was uncertain, but his expression had shifted into a serious mode, showing genuine thought. That is the right answer, Shinji nodded approvingly. Oh, so it's actually quite simple, just a bit indirect, Saitama said, returning to his usual blank expression. Whatever, if answering in a roundabout way gets me a good score, I'll just do it that way. That works. Then you should have no problems, Shinji replied. When it came to the physical tests, Saitama was sure to score full marks. The only variable was how well he would perform on the written portion. The Hero Certification exam's 6th special venue was the testing site for the Z region. At this moment, Saitama had already entered the examination area. Around him were many others taking the exam, dressed in all sorts of unusual outfits. Since Shinji had already been registered in the hero registry, he had the qualification to observe the exam from the stands, though interference was strictly prohibited. The written test came first. There were only a few questions, and Saitama took them quite seriously. Thanks to Shinji's earlier advice, he answered them using the roundabout thinking expected of weaker individuals rather than his usual straightforward just-punch-it approach. As long as he maintained this mindset, the written test was essentially free points. Next came the physical fitness tests. Next event. Lateral jumps for 30 seconds. Begin! Saitama's expression immediately switched to serious mode as he began the side-to-side jumps. Not that he was really trying hard, even with a casual effort, he moved so fast that multiple afterimages followed him, shocking the other examinees waiting behind. Next, 1,500-meter run. Next, weightlifting. Next, vertical leap. Saitama breezed through every event. He shattered the venue's record in the 1,500-meter run, maxed out the barbell's capacity during weightlifting, and jumped so high during the vertical leap that his head broke through the ceiling. He did it all as if he were merely messing around, never breaking a sweat. Meanwhile, the other examinees were drenched in sweat, watching him in despair. Compared to Saitama, their performances felt utterly embarrassing. Some even considered quitting on the spot. Only Shinji maintained a calm expression throughout. After the exam, Shinji and Saitama met in the waiting room. Saitama had been stripped down to just his underwear during the physical tests, but had now dressed again. Looks like we can pick up our score reports in about an hour. Let's wait here for now, Saitama said. How do you feel about it? Shinji asked. Way too easy. Only the written test might be a little iffy, but it should be fine, Saitama replied confidently and relaxed. An hour later, Saitama received his results. Whoa! A perfect score, 100 points. That's full marks, right? He exclaimed, looking at the paper in his hand. At the bottom was a message. Mr. Saitama, based on your performance in the Hero Association exam, you have been certified as an S-Class hero. We look forward to your future contributions as a hero. Ding! The host has successfully assisted Saitama in being ranked as an S-Class hero. Reward earned, 10 points, instant movement technique. Honestly, in this ranking exam, Shinji was the real MVP, but Saitama just coasted to victory. Chapter 17, Body Flicker Technique. Shinji received another pleasant surprise. While the body flicker technique wasn't as rare or as overwhelming as the Flying Thunder God technique, it was incredibly compatible with it. In the Naruto world, body flicker was one of the most commonly used ninjutsu. Every shinobi village had its own variation. At its core, it referred to high-speed movement techniques that allowed users to traverse short to moderate distances in the blink of an eye. For instance, the Rakich's lightning movement and Shursui's illusion body flicker were vastly different in nature. One was based on lightning release chakra mode, the other was a dojutsu-based movement technique utilizing the Sharingan, yet both were classified under the broader umbrella of body flicker. Similarly, Hanzo of the Salamander used water movement, and Zabuza relied on mist-based techniques. Though their chakra natures and visual effects differed, the underlying principle was the same. The version Shinji obtained was the standard Konoha-style body flicker technique. Officially a D-rank jutsu within Konoha's classification system, its power could be raised significantly through persistent training and refinement. Someone like Minato had elevated this seemingly simple technique to an astonishing level. By pairing it with the Flying Thunder God technique, he became a true master of battlefield control, capable of disappearing and reappearing across vast distances with frightening precision. In fact, his mastery had surpassed even that of Tobirama, the original creator of Flying Thunder God. One of Minato's most legendary displays came during the Fourth Great Ninja War. He teleported to the battlefield, rapidly placing Flying Thunder God seals across critical locations, including the sea, the battlefield center, and the four corners of the Four Red Yang formation. These seals allowed him to perform feats such as diverting a tailed beast bomb to the ocean and instantly positioning the first, second, and third Hokage exactly where they needed to be in the defensive formation. The truth was, Flying Thunder God couldn't operate without pre-placed markers. That limitation meant real-time applications required incredible speed and mobility. This was where body flicker came in. Minato's use of high-speed movement enabled him to mark strategic locations under pressure, seamlessly integrating the two techniques and maximizing their combined potential. In a sense, Flying Thunder God could be considered a form of space-time ninjutsu layered atop an advanced body flicker. But Minato's ability to use it with such fluidity stemmed from his complete mastery of the foundational body flicker technique, an essential requirement for controlling such an intricate ability in real battle. That's why body flicker was known as the best complement to Flying Thunder God. Exactly, and judging by the result, you're already an S-class hero, Shinji said, a satisfied grin forming on his face as he immersed himself in the rhythm of his newly acquired technique. Becoming an S-class hero is that easy? Then you must be an S-class hero too, right, Shinji? Saitama asked, tilting his head slightly in curiosity. He was starting to feel like the whole test might have been too easy, especially the physical portion. That lingering thought surfaced again. So, is that all there is to becoming an S-class hero? Sorry to disappoint, Shinji replied with a polite, slightly awkward smile. I just got promoted from C-class to B-class. Bit embarrassing, really. Huh? Seriously? Saitama blinked, genuinely surprised. He thought back to Shinji's earlier explanation about understanding things from the perspectives of both the strong and the weak. Was he doing it again, unconsciously judging everything from the strong's viewpoint? So maybe the hero exam actually is really difficult for everyone else? Saitama rested his chin in his hand, frowning slightly in thought. That explanation seemed to make the most sense. That's right. Since you are so powerful, I will be counting on you from now on, Shinji said with a warm smile, folding his arms comfortably behind his back. No, I am the one who should be counting on you, Saitama replied, wearing a rare look of earnestness, though in truth he was already picturing the next free meal Shinji might treat him to. A metallic chime rang through the corridor speakers. Mr. Saitama, the orientation for certified heroes will begin at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Please proceed to Hall 2 on time. Saitama flicked his gaze toward the ceiling. Do we get to leave once the lecture ends? Yup. Shinji answered, giving a single nod. Good, let's head up then. Saitama rose in one smooth motion, hands stuffed into the pockets of his tracksuit. By the time they reached the second auditorium, the sprawling hall was almost deserted. Only 2 seats in the front row were occupied by them, and a lone figure stood at the podium. Despite the minimal attendance, the man at the lectern radiated authority. He was Snek, an active A-class hero currently ranked 38th. His narrow face and sharp jawline gave him the kind of appearance that might make casual onlookers uneasy, as if he belonged in a back-alley thriller rather than an official venue. Still, with scarcely anyone present, Snek felt compelled to address the odd head count. First off, congratulations to Mr. Saitama for passing the exam. However, I was informed only one person qualified today. If this gentleman is Saitama, then who might you be? He asked, eyes shifting to Shinji. I am Shinji, a B-class hero. I accompanied Saitama for the exam, so feel free to ignore me, Shinji replied calmly. His posture was upright, hands resting neatly on his knees, expression politely indifferent. Oh, you are that recently promoted Shinji. Understood. Snek did not object further, silently permitting Shinji to remain. The association rules allowed current professional heroes to observe as long as they did not disrupt the proceedings. More importantly, Snek began again, redirecting his attention to Saitama. We must clarify a few things. He cleared his throat. S-class heroes were phenomenally uncommon, yet the man before him slouched as though lounging in a convenience store. Saitama reclined with one arm draped across the backrest, legs crossed, wearing a tracksuit emblazoned with the word OPPAI and accompanied by that famously cheeky design. A wad of bubble gum expanded between his lips, reflecting the overhead lights, as he stared lazily at the ceiling. This is an official Hero Association event, Snek thought, suppressing a sigh. Next to Saitama, Shinji sat with near-military neatness, subconsciously easing Snek's nerves. The contrast only made Saitama's casual demeanor more pronounced, yet confronting an S-class hero over etiquette was perilous and unwise. Maintaining a courteous tone, Snek continued the orientation. Mr. Saitama, although you have already achieved S-class certification, a remarkable accomplishment, please remain humble. A hero must safeguard not only lives but also reputation. Your likeness is now displayed on the association's official website, which means the public will monitor your conduct closely. Saitama showed no reaction. He did not adjust his posture or expression. Instead, he inflated another gum bubble with leisurely patience until the pink sphere eclipsed half his face. Snek's brow twitched, yet he persevered. I hope you will strive to become a hero admirable both in skill and in character. At that very instant, the bubble burst, spraying sticky remnants across Saitama's nose and cheeks. A stray splatter even reached Shinji's sleeve. Pfft. Watching the scene, Snek felt his mental composure snap like a frayed wire, though he kept his frustration sealed behind a forced smile. As an A-class hero, he could not scold an S-class peer publicly, and more importantly his role today was to instruct, not to quarrel. He swallowed his irritation, briskly summarized the remaining guidelines, and wrapped up the session at record speed. Only when the last slide flickered off the screen did he allow himself a tiny sigh of relief, silently praying that the next group of recruits would at least pretend to respect the formality of association gatherings. Chapter 18, The Fourth Hokage's Kunai. The boring lecture is finally over. Saitama walked down the road with his hands in his pockets, heading home. Meanwhile, Shinji was checking the Hero Association's official website on his phone. He found that Saitama's profile had already been added to the hero registry. He was now officially the 17th S-class hero, ranked last among them, but still in the top tier. Shinji scrolled down further and spotted himself ranked 56th in the B-class. He mainly wanted to check if the association's executives had finalized his hero codename. B-class, rank 56, Kamui. Shinji let out a small breath of relief. Thankfully, they'd gone with his suggestion. If they'd actually slapped him with something like Red-Eyed Man, he would have seriously considered quitting on the spot. My hero codename's been approved. You'll be getting one too soon, Saitama, Shinji said. Hero codename? What's that all about? Saitama asked, tilting his head. It's a name unique to each hero, usually based on your abilities or appearance, Shinji explained. For example, the one they were originally going to give me was Red-Eyed Man. He pointed at his Sharingan as he spoke. Obviously, the association executives had come up with that name based on his eyes. Why do you say originally? Saitama asked curiously. Because I requested a change. They eventually approved it, and now my official codename is Kamui, Shinji replied. Oh! Saitama nodded, then muttered, so in my case, would my codename be something like Cape Baldy? Shinji paused for a moment. There's a good chance. That sounds awful. If it really ends up being that, can I apply for a change too? Even though Cape Baldy did technically describe Saitama well, he was particularly sensitive about the bald part and not thrilled about being called that. In fact, later on, Saitama joined the Hero Name Victims Association, protesting with a megaphone outside the organization's headquarters and demanding an apology, which showed just how much he hated that name. You can try. I can't say for sure, Shinji said with an awkward smile. Most likely, Saitama's codename would be Cape Baldy again. The only reason Shinji probably got away with changing his was a bit of luck. When he had just gotten promoted to B-class, his hero codename hadn't been finalized yet. Red-Eyed Man was likely just one of the options being considered. And just as the execs were still undecided, Shinji sent in his suggestion. Too lazy to brainstorm more, they just approved it. That's how most of the Hero Association's higher-ups operated, disorganized, lacking in leadership and competence, and many were involved in some pretty shady stuff too. Whatever. I'll deal with it later, Saitama said, no longer interested. Right now, all he wanted was to go home, lie down, and read some manga. During his free time, Shinji decided to test out the body flicker technique. He had acquired it as a system reward, and like all his previous rewards, he instantly mastered the technique the moment he received it. No training was necessary to understand it, but mastery and practical skill were different things entirely. If he relied solely on the baseline version of body flicker, the same technique nearly every shinobi in the Naruto world could perform, it wouldn't do much for him in real combat. So he practiced. Following the method outlined in the system interface within his mind, Shinji focused his mental energy and used it to stimulate his physical body, enhancing his speed. Normally, body flicker was powered by chakra, but the system had automatically modified it to draw from his mental energy instead. It worked differently, but the core concept remained the same: vanish from one spot, reappear at another, faster than the eye could follow. He gave it a test. With a focused thought, Shinji disappeared from his position and reappeared a few meters ahead. The speed's decent, but still not enough, he murmured, narrowing his eyes in analysis. Very quickly, he identified two major factors that limited the potential of the body flicker technique: physical attributes and mental energy strength. On top of that, repeated training improved fine control and precision, both of which were vital. After all, in the hands of an elite shinobi, even a basic body flicker could turn into a terrifying combat technique. He opened his system panel to take stock. Host, Shinji. Age, 20. Status, Human, B-Class, rank 56. Abilities, Dual Kamui, Flying Thunder God Technique, Body Flicker Technique. Weapon, Crimson Knight Blade. Physique, 75, plus Hashirama cells times 2. Points, 41. Point store, LV1. And, I have no idea where this Crimson Knight Blade is from. If you know, mention in the comment. With 41 points available, Shinji decided to save them for now. Better to hold off until he had a clearer picture of what he needed. Next, he began practicing how to chain body flicker with Flying Thunder God, while also using the opportunity to unlock more locations on the system map. But before he could begin long-distance teleportation, he needed to replenish his supply of kunai. Alert! The host has exchanged 4 fourth Hokage's kunai times 10. Points deducted, 1, remaining points, 40. With just 1 point, Shinji obtained 10 special kunai, exact replicas of the iconic tri-pronged blades used by the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze. He carefully etched the Flying Thunder God formulas onto each kunai. As he channeled his chakra into the weapons, the handles began to glow faintly. The Flying Thunder God seal shimmered beneath an overlay of Kamui's sigil, the two spatial powers pulsing in perfect synchrony. Once everything was ready, he launched into training. Starting from Z City, he employed a simple yet rigorous method: move using body flicker, then throw marked kunai at distant, narrow targets, like the jagged tip of a radio tower in a neighboring city or a single sea rock protruding above the waves. Doing so while flying through the air at high speed demanded intense reflexes and sharp hand-eye coordination. Minato could do it effortlessly. He had honed such techniques to the point of perfection, mastering high-speed multitasking during battle and embedding markers on key targets in real time. But Shinji was just starting down that path. He had neither Minato's experience nor his legendary intuition, so he had no choice but to rely on relentless practice. He surged forward, tearing through the sky with the body flicker technique. After images trailed behind him, his figure flickering with speed that still fell short of invisibility, but only just. Up ahead, a target came into view, the spire of a skyscraper in the distance. Shinji flicked his wrist. The kunai launched forward, spinning with surgical precision. With the help of his Mangekyo Sharingan, his spatial awareness and predictive accuracy far exceeded normal human limits. Even without formal training in throwing weapons, his aim was exceptional. Thud! The kunai embedded itself cleanly into the very tip of the tower. Perfect, he thought with satisfaction. Moments later, he passed over the boundary into W City. Alert! First time entering W City. Reward, 2 points. Without slowing down, Shinji activated the Flying Thunder God technique. In the blink of an eye, his figure vanished from the sky and reappeared atop the tower, standing silently with 1 foot balanced on the embedded kunai, his coat fluttering in the wind as he overlooked the sprawling city below. Chapter 19, Saitama the Walking GPS Error. Shinji had just completed the first round of his training. That's right, only the initial phase. What came next would seriously ramp up the difficulty. With another flash of Flying Thunder God, he vanished from the spire, the embedded kunai disappearing with him as he teleported back to W City, still holding the blade. There were plenty of cities on the system map he hadn't unlocked yet. His objective was clear: sprint across every remaining one using body flicker technique, and embed a Flying Thunder God kunai into a precise location in each. If even one kunai missed its target, no matter how slightly, he would scrap the entire run and start over from the beginning. No breaks, no shortcuts, no mercy. He dove back into his training with relentless focus. Alert! Host has arrived in V City for the first time. Reward, 2 points. Alert! Host has arrived in U City for the first time. Reward, 2 points. By the time he completed the full circuit, Shinji had unlocked 16 cities in total. But he still wasn't satisfied. In the last city, his stamina had dropped dangerously low. His final kunai throw had hit the mark, but just barely. It embedded itself slightly off-center, close enough to register but too sloppy for his standards. He stared at the embedded weapon for a long moment, displeased. Not clean enough. Shinji didn't allow himself excuses. Not even minor mistakes were acceptable. His answer was simple: tomorrow, he would run the same route again, but cleaner, faster, and sharper. He wasn't ready for the real thing if he couldn't execute the final throw flawlessly after a full-speed cross-regional sprint. But for now, he was completely spent. Time to rest. As for the 11 kunai scattered across those cities, he wasn't worried about collecting them right away. The Flying Thunder God seals wouldn't fade. The only recorded case of a seal being forcibly removed was during the Fourth Great Ninja War, when Obito manually erased one. Outside of that, they were as good as permanent. Back at the apartment door, Shinji unlocked it and stepped inside. The lights were on, and a familiar presence was draped across his couch like he owned it. Saitama. Sprawled out lazily in front of the television, he didn't even look away from the screen when the door opened. Saitama's own TV had broken down recently, and he didn't feel like paying for repairs. So naturally, he started crashing at Shinji's place to watch shows. It was cheaper. "Oh, you're back," Saitama said flatly, glancing over without much interest. He noticed the glisten of sweat on Shinji's forehead and the weariness in his step. "You were training? You look wiped." "Yeah. Just been dashing between cities," Shinji replied casually, tugging his coat off and letting it drop on the chair. "Sounds kind of fun." Saitama's expression shifted, his eyes dulled, his mouth flattened, and he entered his signature simple mode, staring at Shinji with that blank, deadpan look. "Can I tag along next time?" Shinji stopped mid-motion, glancing back over his shoulder. "You? Tag along?" Saitama had no teleportation, no spatial awareness skills, and no sense of direction. If he came along, Shinji wouldn't be training anymore, he'd be babysitting a walking GPS error. Saitama was bored out of his mind staying home all the time. Sure, watching TV and reading manga were his usual hobbies, and hero work was the one thing he genuinely cared about, but even he had limits. The routine was starting to feel stale. What made it worse was how much he relied on news broadcasts to track monster activity. The media never bothered reporting low-level threats, so there were long stretches where he had absolutely nothing to do. No monsters, no chaos, just waiting. Shinji suddenly froze mid-sentence. Damn it. I slipped up. He should have kept quiet about his training. Now Saitama was interested, and once he decided to tag along, tomorrow's session was almost guaranteed to devolve into a 1v1 sparring nightmare. "Sure. You'll probably beat me into the ground, though," Shinji said with a strained smile, already regretting it. "Nah, I won't go that hard," Saitama replied casually, waving his hand like it was no big deal. He was a little curious, though, about how Shinji was able to assess his real strength, but too lazy to be curious. The next morning, just after sunrise, Shinji got moving early. His first order of business was retrieving the 11 Flying Thunder God kunai he had scattered across various cities during yesterday's endurance training. That part went smoothly. With all kunai back in hand, he returned home and brought Saitama up to the rooftop of their apartment, today's official starting point. Saitama was already suited up and ready to go. The yellow jumpsuit, white cape, red gloves, and boots, the whole look was painfully low budget, with its simple round buckle and old-school design. But that cheap outfit wasn't just some costume. It had been made for him by a small clothing shop owner who genuinely believed in Saitama's dream to be a hero. That belief stuck with him. From that day onward, this outfit became his only uniform, permanent and irreplaceable. Starting point is here, right? So where's the finish line? Saitama asked, doing some basic stretches. Shinji pointed across the cityscape. Top of the Hoshino Grand Hotel in P-City. Got it, Saitama said with a nod. Then he began warming up, and by warming up, that meant doing those awkward old-school elementary school exercises. He swung his arms back and forth, bent sideways with exaggerated form, and twisted his waist while humming a totally offbeat rhythm. After a few seconds of his bizarre prep routine, he looked over with that familiar clueless expression. "All right, I'm ready. Let's go." 3. Shinji began counting down. 2. 1. And with 0, both of them launched forward. Shinji disappeared in a flicker of movement, his body vanishing into a blur as he activated body flicker technique. Saitama was just being Saitama. With his arms thrust out in a full Superman pose, he rocketed off the rooftop like a human missile. It looked like a flight, but he wasn't flying, he was just bouncing through the air with leg strength alone. One small push at half power was all it took to launch him forward at terrifying speed, and he vanished over the horizon, leaving nothing behind but wind turbulence and Shinji's rapidly shrinking confidence. Honestly, Shinji could have cheated. He had already marked P-City with a Flying Thunder God seal, so all it would take was a flick of his will to teleport straight to the finish line and beat Saitama there with ease. But he didn't. Because this wasn't about winning. This was training, a test of stamina, technique, and focus. And besides, losing to Saitama? That wasn't even remotely embarrassing. So even after being left in the dust miles behind, Shinji kept going at his own pace. He repeated the same pattern from yesterday's training, dashing from city to city, launching kunai with precision at carefully chosen targets in each new location. Only this time, everything felt different. Smoother. More efficient. Sharper. His movements were cleaner, his momentum steadier, his transitions between body flicker bursts almost seamless. Kunai flew from his hands with greater precision and less wasted effort. Even his posture while moving had improved. It wasn't just about speed, it was control. His body was working in perfect sync with his mind. By the time he reached the final city, P-City, he still had stamina left. No trembling muscles, no labored breathing, no mental fog. It wasn't because his reserves had magically improved overnight. He had simply moved better. His improved execution reduced the overall strain on both body and mind. Then he reached the top of the Hoshino Grand Hotel. And froze. Saitama wasn't there. What? That made no sense. He hadn't seen so much as a glimpse of him since the initial launch. Saitama should have arrived ages ago, probably even had time for a nap. Or maybe he got bored waiting and already left. Just as the thought crossed his mind, the system chimed. Alert! Host has defeated Saitama in the speed challenge. Reward, 100 points. Shinji stopped breathing for a second. I won. He stared at the empty rooftop in disbelief. How? Where was Saitama? Meanwhile, in some random city nowhere near Peace City, Saitama landed on a rooftop and blinked at his surroundings. I dunno, man. Yep. You guessed it. He was lost. As previously mentioned, Saitama had absolutely zero sense of direction. After takeoff, instead of heading toward Peace City, he launched into the sky with his usual power and completely overshot the target. One jump, just one jump, and he landed in the farthest possible place from the finish line. A city. Now, standing alone on an unfamiliar rooftop, he scratched his head and looked around helplessly. Man, this is bad. I think I'm lost. Not even sure which direction I'm supposed to go now. He let out a defeated sigh, his expression as blank as ever, and glanced up at the sky as if it would offer answers. Back in Peace City, Shinji stood silently on the rooftop, slowly piecing together the truth. There was only one possible explanation for his win. Right. I totally forgot he's a walking GPS error. It was so obvious in hindsight. Shinji instantly regretted not tagging Saitama with a Flying Thunder God Seal before the challenge. If he had, tracking him down would have taken seconds. But now? Now he had no choice. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Somewhere deep in Mystery City X, Saitama had just started debating whether to bounce in a random direction when his phone buzzed. He checked the screen and picked up immediately. Yo? Shinji here, Shinji said flatly. There was a pause on the other end. So, I think I got a little lost. Saitama's voice was sheepish, like a kid who wandered too far at the mall. Shinji closed his eyes and dragged a hand down his face. Of course. Seriously, I am really bad with directions. Man, it is just embarrassing. Saitama was at a loss for words before glancing at the person next to him. Isn't that right, Mr. Mysterious Man with green hair and swords? Zoro widened his eyes for a moment, then let out a long sigh. Yeah. They both tilted their heads back, looked up at the sky, and sighed in unison. Chapter 20, Breaking Limits. Yeah, I figured, Shinji said, clearly at a loss for words. You're already at the finish line, right? I'll just take the subway home, Saitama replied over the phone. He knew that if he kept trying to fly back himself, he'd probably end up in the wrong city again, maybe even farther than before. As much as he hated spending money, at least the subway fare was cheap. No need for that. Just describe what kind of buildings are around you. I'll come find you, Shinji offered. He understood Saitama's financial situation wasn't ideal and wanted to help him avoid spending money unnecessarily. Ah, thanks man. That'd help a lot. Saitama looked down from the rooftop and began describing his surroundings. There's a tall tower nearby, and a big river next to it. I think I've seen that tower before, but I forgot where it was exactly. Shinji immediately understood. I know where you are. Hang tight, I'll be there in a second. The moment he ended the call, he activated Flying Thunder God and instantly appeared in front of Saitama. Whoa! That was fast. Saitama exclaimed, blinking in surprise. Of course, Shinji had marked that tower the day before with a seal. Since Flying Thunder God was a space-time ninjutsu, the teleportation happened in an instant. Want to check out the finish line? Or should we just head home? Shinji asked. Let's take a look at the finish line. It feels like I'd be leaving something unfinished if I didn't, Saitama replied. Got it. This time, Shinji didn't teleport. He used body flicker technique instead, zipping through the air at incredible speed. Saitama floated behind at a more relaxed pace, careful not to take any wrong turns again after getting lost earlier. Before long, they landed on the rooftop of the Hoshino Grand Hotel, their original destination. From the top, they could see a wide, peaceful view, mountains and rivers stretching into the horizon like a serene landscape painting. You got here before me. You win, Saitama said calmly. He didn't seem to care much about winning or losing. In fact, he looked a little content. Maybe for someone undefeated for so long, losing once brought a strangely refreshing feeling. But before Saitama could settle into that feeling, Shinji shook his head. That doesn't count. You only lost because you got lost, not because you were slower. Saitama had already accepted the outcome, but Shinji wasn't willing to accept the win. A hollow victory meant nothing to him. Of course, if the system tried to take back those 100 reward points, he'd shut up instantly. Losing is losing. It's no big deal, Saitama said casually. Before Shinji could say anything else, Saitama added, You really are strong, huh? So why are you only a B-class hero? Are A-class and S-class heroes even stronger than you? He genuinely didn't understand the Hero Association's power rankings. From what he had seen, Shinji already seemed incredibly capable, so it made no sense that someone like him wouldn't be ranked higher. Maybe, Shinji replied vaguely. There are definitely some powerful people in the Hero Association. But stronger than you? I doubt it. Of course, he couldn't speak from the perspective of an all-knowing reader, or he would have just flat out said, No one stronger than you, period. I see. Well, I guess I'll find out for myself soon, Saitama said, his tone as calm, with a subtle hint of something curiosity. There was no arrogance or smugness in his voice. He simply sounded intrigued, genuinely wondering if anyone out there could finally give him a fight worth getting serious about. Naturally, Saitama wasn't the type to chase after battles. He was the laid-back kind. If a powerful opponent appeared, great. If not, then sitting at home reading manga or watching TV was just as fine. Heading back now, right? In that case, let's go again. That last round didn't feel satisfying. Suddenly, Saitama's tone shifted. His face changed into that overly serious art style, sharp shadows, piercing eyes, total focus. Boom! Shinji's heart skipped a beat. Saitama was about to get serious. And Shinji? He was already down to 1/3 of his stamina from the last round of training. Still, this could be an opportunity. Breaking through limits usually came under high stress, high pressure, and sometimes downright reckless conditions. All right. Let's go, Shinji said with a nod, showing no hesitation. They launched forward together, retracing the route they'd taken earlier. This time, Shinji wasn't throwing kunai to mark spots. He was collecting every last one while still sprinting at top speed. His breath grew heavier, limbs trembling as fatigue dragged him down. With only 1/3 of his energy left, his body inched closer to collapse with each passing moment. Sweat poured down his face and soaked through his clothes. His vision blurred. His chest burned. And yet, he clenched his teeth, gritted through the pain, and kept going. He refused to stop. No matter how bad it hurt, he was determined to complete the full route from start to finish. He wasn't sure how long he'd been running when it finally happened. The agony was peaking, every nerve firing like crazy, when suddenly, something broke. Or rather, something shattered inside him. His body felt lighter all at once, like a heavy restraint had been lifted off his shoulders. Alert! Host has broken through physical limits. Reward, plus 35 Constitution, plus 2 Hashirama cells. Constitution, 110. Hashirama cells, 4. That explained the sudden lightness surging through his body. Invigorated and pulsing with new strength, Shinji completed the entire route and finally landed back on the rooftop of his apartment. But once again, there was no sign of Saitama. You've got to be kidding me. Don't tell me, he got lost again? Right then, Shinji's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Caller, Saitama. Yep, confirmed. Please don't tell me. Sorry, Shinji. I think I got lost again. Saitama sounded confused and slightly sheepish. He had no idea where he'd ended up this time. Only one option left, call for help. I'll come get you. Same as last time. So tell me what kind of buildings are around you. Shinji wasn't even surprised anymore. At this point, Saitama being a walking GPS failure had practically become part of his routine. Compared to him, Shinji was the complete opposite. With his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, his memory functioned like a high-speed database. Every building, landmark, and street he had ever seen was stored perfectly in his mind. As long as Saitama could describe just one distinctive feature, Shinji could pinpoint his location immediately. Same scene, different day. Shinji picked Saitama up and brought him back to the rooftop again. And just like before, because Saitama had gotten lost, Shinji technically won their rematch. But this time, the system didn't reward him for the victory. Apparently, that achievement was a one-time deal, just like how he only got a reward the first time he joined the Hero Association. If there weren't any limits, Shinji could have just dragged Saitama into daily speed trials to farm points non-stop. With Saitama's terrible sense of direction, it would have been easy wins forever. Saitama, would you mind if I left a seal on you? That way, I can find you instantly next time. After all this, Shinji figured it was finally time to tag Saitama with a Flying Thunder God marker. He still asked politely out of respect. Sure. It would be easy. Saitama answered without hesitation. He didn't even blink. Not the slightest trace of suspicion, no worry about being exploited. Just pure, unbothered confidence. Shinji blinked in surprise at how fast he agreed. Then again, it wasn't hard to understand. Saitama was unbeatable. What did he need to be cautious about? Shinji placed his hand on Saitama's back and applied the Flying Thunder God seal. A faint Kamui-style pattern pulsed through his shirt, barely visible but subtle enough that no one would notice unless they were deliberately looking for it. All set. Next time you get lost, just give me a call. Chapter 21, Dragon Level Threat. That's pretty neat. I'll count on you when I need it later. Saitama scratched his back casually, feeling nothing in particular. Good, I'm gonna take a shower. You got any plans for the rest of the day? Shinji shook his head. Nope. Unless a monster shows up, I just want to lie down, read some manga, or play some games. Hearing that, Saitama suddenly remembered something. Oh right, Shinji, do you like games? They're alright. I used to play quite a bit before, Shinji replied with a faint grin. Perfect. I'll bring the game over to your place later, Saitama said without hesitation. Saitama hadn't even broken a sweat, so he didn't need a long shower. Shinji, however, was soaked from head to toe. Pushing himself past his limit had really drained him. Sure, Shinji agreed. Playing games with Saitama might seem like a waste of time, but in truth, he wanted to test whether defeating Saitama in a game could trigger a system reward. If it worked, then it would definitely be worth it. Even if it didn't, it wouldn't be a complete loss. He was still curious about what kinds of games people played in this world. So far, it didn't seem that different from the Japan he had known before transmigrating. Physical game discs and handheld consoles were still widely used. Even though I got lost twice, today was actually pretty fun. As they descended the stairs from the rooftop, Saitama let out a satisfied sigh. Glad you had fun, Shinji replied with a wry smile. Had fun, huh? Shinji couldn't help but reflect silently. He had thrown everything he had into the match, yet for Saitama, it had just been another casual workout. But maybe because it was Saitama, he didn't feel frustrated or defeated at all. After his shower, Shinji came out of the bathroom to find that Saitama had already connected the console to the TV and was waiting for him. It was one of those physical disc games played through the television screen. All done? Great, come play! Saitama called out, patting the cushion next to him. He had even brought both seat cushions himself. Okay, let me just dry my hair first. Once Shinji finished drying off, he sat down beside Saitama and picked up a controller. This one's a fighting game I've loved for years. Want me to teach you how to play? Saitama asked, clearly getting excited. After going up against AI opponents for so long, he finally had a real human to challenge. No need. I've got a decent idea how these work, Shinji said with a slight shake of his head. Just from glancing at the screen, Shinji could immediately tell the game was similar to classics like King of Fighters or Street Fighter. Even though he'd only played those when he was a kid, they had left a lasting impression on him. At first, he didn't activate his Mangekyo Sharingan. The result? He completely destroyed Saitama in their first match. Shinji already had a solid grasp of the basic controls, and once he activated his Sharingan, his performance was enhanced even more. From the very first round, he handed Saitama a merciless defeat. Alert! The host has defeated Saitama in a game. Reward, 10 points. The system granted him significantly fewer points this time, a clear indication that beating Saitama in a video game wasn't considered particularly challenging, so the reward was scaled down accordingly. At that moment, Saitama's eye twitched. He hadn't expected to get steamrolled by Shinji right out of the gate. Just moments ago, he'd been thinking about teaching the guy how to play, and now he was the one getting schooled. If someone told Saitama he was weak in real fights, he'd probably just shrug it off with a smile. But if someone dared to say he sucked at video games, then yeah, that might actually get under his skin. So you're this good at games, huh? Alright then, time to get serious. Saitama's tone shifted as he leaned forward, clearly entering serious mode. He wasn't going to hold back anymore. Realizing he might have gone a bit too far, Shinji quietly deactivated his Mangekyo Sharingan and switched over to the standard 3-tomo Sharingan to even the odds a little. And yet, just a few minutes later, KO! Saitama lost again. At least it wasn't as humiliating as the first round. This time, Shinji had not only downgraded to the regular Sharingan but was also intentionally holding back to make the match closer. Again! Saitama barked, still unwilling to accept defeat. Shinji didn't say a word. Instead, he silently deactivated even his 3-tomo Sharingan, reverting to his natural black pupils. Before they realized it, 10 full rounds had passed. Saitama lost every single one. Shinji had really tried to go easy on him, but balancing that without making it too obvious was harder than it looked. Even while suppressing his abilities, he still came out on top each time. Saitama's gaming skills were painfully average, while Shinji, despite being a first-time player of this specific game, improved with every round. The learning speed and observational insight granted by the Mangekyo Sharingan didn't vanish completely just because he turned it off. Even when dormant, those abilities gave him a clear edge over an ordinary human. The skill gap between them widened so fast that it became nearly impossible for Shinji to lose on purpose without making it obvious. And if Saitama ever caught onto that, it would definitely not end well. After 10 consecutive defeats, Saitama's face was starting to show clear signs of irritation. Even so, he held to his own principles. No matter how badly he got beaten in a game, he wouldn't lash out at the person across from him. He just got quietly mad. Or he redirected his frustration toward the next monster that crossed his path. I think I'm starting to burn out. You're still full of energy though, Saitama. How about we call it a day? Shinji suggested, looking for a natural way to wrap things up. Yeah? Alright then. We'll play again next time, Saitama agreed with a nod, not suspecting anything. His expression eased as he slipped from angry boiled egg mode back into his usual relaxed demeanor. Didn't expect to meet such a strong opponent today. I'm gonna go train hard now. Give me a few days, I'll beat you for sure, he added, his eyes filled with newfound determination. Shinji responded with a quiet smile. After that, Saitama grabbed his game disc and controller and made his way to the door. But just as he was about to leave, he stopped suddenly. Aw crap. I totally forgot my TV's busted. Well, no choice then. Shinji, can I borrow yours for a bit? Of course. I don't really watch TV much. Go ahead and use it as long as you want, Shinji said with a nod. Since he didn't feel like refusing Saitama, he allowed the Baldy to make himself at home. He knew that Saitama had a habit of destroying consoles, but since game consoles are Saitama's, Shinji wasn't bothered. Awesome! I'm gonna start practicing right now, Saitama declared as he plopped back down in front of the screen. He had barely been playing for a few minutes when a breaking news alert flashed across the top of the TV screen. It was an emergency broadcast reporting a massive explosion in City A, suspected to be either a demon-level or possibly even a dragon-level disaster. Shinji's expression tensed as he read the alert. City A had taken heavy damage. Could it be? Had the dragon-level threat, Vaccine Man, finally made his appearance? Chapter 22, Dragon Level, Vaccine Man. Another monster, huh? Time to deliver justice. Saitama immediately set the controller aside and paused the game. But just as he stood to change into his hero outfit and head out, he realized that Shinji, who had been right beside him moments earlier, was already gone. He moves fast. Guess he's already on it. I better get moving too, Saitama mumbled as he changed into his battle suit and rushed toward City A. This time, he didn't get lost. Shinji had reached City A first. The instant he saw the news and suspected that the dragon-level threat might be Vaccine Man, he used Kamui to teleport straight to the city. Though he hadn't yet placed a Flying Thunder God seal there, Kamui's nearly instant teleportation made that a non-issue. Alert! Host has exchanged physique times 108. 108 points deducted. Current remaining points, 50. Alert! Host has exchanged Hashirama cells times 5. 50 points deducted. Current remaining points, 0. Physique plus 108. Hashirama cells plus 5. Current physique, 218. Hashirama cells, 9. Upon arrival, Shinji instantly spent the last of his system points to massively boost his physique and stockpile more Hashirama cells. Facing a dragon-level threat was no time to be conservative. Boom! A deafening explosion rocked the city just then. The blast wave expanded at an incredible pace and reached Shinji almost instantly. Without hesitation, his Mangekyo Sharingan flared to life. Using his phasing ability, he allowed the explosion to pass through his body without any resistance. Around him, buildings were completely demolished in the blink of an eye, reduced to smoking rubble. Shinji quickly noticed several enormous energy orbs tearing through the sky toward various parts of the city. That was unmistakably Vaccine Man's power. The creature was rumored to have been empowered by a mysterious god, just like the Homeless Emperor. Without wasting a second, Shinji leapt into action. 3 space-time portals opened midair as he intercepted the incoming orbs. With precise timing, he redirected all 3 into his Kamui dimension, nullifying the threat before impact. When the expected explosions failed to occur, Vaccine Man looked genuinely stunned. Floating higher into the air, he launched a flurry of new energy orbs in every direction, filling the skyline with destruction. But Shinji wasn't done. Using his dual Kamui powers, he summoned multiple portals at once and intercepted the orbs again, transferring them before they could strike. What is this? Vaccine Man roared, clearly rattled. By then, Shinji had already pinpointed the monster's exact location. Suspended in the sky ahead of him was a powerful, muscular figure with a sharp, alien appearance that made him look uncannily like Piccolo from Dragon Ball. In an instant, Shinji teleported directly in front of Vaccine Man and unleashed a rapid barrage of kunai, each one embedded with the Flying Thunder God seal. Vaccine Man's reaction speed was nothing to scoff at. As a dragon-level threat, he moved with impressive precision, shifting his head slightly to evade the kunai aimed at his face without breaking a sweat. Who are you? Vaccine Man didn't rush to attack. His tone was calm, probing, as he floated in the air with an eerie composure. But Shinji had no interest in small talk. The moment the kunai flew past Vaccine Man's ear and slipped behind him into a blind spot, Shinji vanished. Flying Thunder God Slash. In an instant, the crimson blade of Red Knight materialized in his hand. He surged forward at a speed too fast for the naked eye to follow, aiming a perfectly timed slash at the unsuspecting monster. The strike came without warning, executed with flawless precision like a textbook first strike kill technique. Even for a dragon-level threat like Vaccine Man, it was impossible to react in time. By the time the monster realized anything was wrong, Shinji had already passed clean through its body and recalled all of his kunai. Gah! A mouthful of blood sprayed from Vaccine Man's mouth. Only then did it register that it had been wounded. Just a regular rookie hero, Shinji replied flatly, not even glancing back. Vaccine Man twisted around, his body suddenly convulsing and mutating. With a deep roar, his form began to expand violently, swelling until he towered several dozen meters into the air. His head warped into a grotesque, monstrous shape, and razor-sharp claws, each several meters long, extended from both of his hands. Even in the face of such a transformation, Shinji remained absolutely composed. When those giant claws came crashing toward him, he didn't move. There was no need. The deadly blades swept right through his body as if he weren't even there. What? Vaccine Man's eyes widened in disbelief. He was certain he had ripped the human to shreds, yet there was no blood, no damage. Nothing. Without missing a beat, Shinji hurled another volley of kunai. This time, Vaccine Man didn't even bother dodging. His massive form and monstrous defense made him supremely confident. The kunai struck his enormous head and bounced off harmlessly, no different from being pelted with pebbles. But then came the twist. Shinji infused Kamui's power directly into Red Knight. The blade shimmered faintly, the air around it rippling with space-warping energy. It was as if the sword itself had been enchanted with another dimension. With Kamui's spatial slicing now woven into Red Knight, its edge was no longer constrained by physical resistance. No matter how impenetrable Vaccine Man's body seemed, it was irrelevant. Unless he could withstand the dissection of space itself, his monstrous defense meant nothing. With a flash of movement, Shinji used Flying Thunder God to teleport directly to the kunai embedded in Vaccine Man's massive forehead. In one fluid, lethal motion, he swung Red Knight, now infused with spatial energy, and decapitated the monster cleanly. The blade passed through flesh and bone as if it were air. It was as effortless as slicing through tofu. Vaccine Man's severed head plummeted to the ground with a heavy thud. Even then, the monster wasn't entirely dead. Its eyes, wide with disbelief and fury, locked onto Shinji with venomous intent. Alert! Host has defeated dragon-level monster Vaccine Man. Reward, 100 points. Alert! First time defeating a dragon-level monster. Bonus reward, 50 points. At that moment, Saitama finally arrived, dressed in his signature hero outfit. He paused, looking at the scene before him, Vaccine Man's beheaded corpse, the lingering energy in the air, and Shinji standing casually over the monster's fallen form. Huh? You already took care of him? Looks like I was late, Saitama said with a neutral expression as he glanced at the lifeless body. He didn't seem disappointed, only mildly curious. Recognition or fame had never mattered to him. If he really wanted credit, he could have crushed the monster with a single punch without waiting. But suddenly, the severed head of Vaccine Man twitched. Energy orbs began rapidly condensing inside its open mouth as it tried to release a final, desperate attack. Shinji didn't give it the chance. With a blink, he teleported the head directly into his Kamui dimension. In an instant, Vaccine Man found itself in a pitch-black void, silent, hollow, and eternal. There was no up or down, no landmarks or orientation. Disoriented and confused, the creature hesitated. Even the charged energy orbs in its mouth stopped forming. Then, without a sound, Shinji appeared behind it. Die or submit. Choose fast. The voice pierced the silence like a knife. Startled, Vaccine Man tried to turn to face him. But being nothing more than a severed head, all it could do was awkwardly roll backward and press its forehead to the ground, twisting itself into a ridiculous upside-down angle just to make eye contact. Its enormous, singular eye stared directly into Shinji's Mangekyo Sharingan. Though the eye was easily larger than Shinji's entire torso, it flickered, just for a moment, with the same crimson hue. And then the light faded. Alert! The host has subdued the dragon-level monster Vaccine Man using Jinjutsu. Reward, 50 points. Chapter 23, Jinjutsu. Shinji had acted on impulse, but to his surprise, he had actually managed to take control of Vaccine Man using Jinjutsu. Alert! In the One Punch Man world, the host can use Jinjutsu to control any opponent they previously defeated. The controlled target retains their own consciousness but must absolutely obey the host. Currently, the host can control up to 3 targets at once through Jinjutsu, but this limit can be increased later. Just as he was still processing what had happened, the system provided a clear explanation. So that's how it works. Shinji gave a small nod in understanding. Vaccine Man wasn't just any enemy, he was a dragon-level monster, and among them, he was considered one of the more powerful threats. Gaining control over him was nothing short of a massive gain. Not only had Shinji secured a high-tier subordinate, but he had also earned a solid chunk of reward points in the process. Honestly, if Vaccine Man hadn't been caught off guard by the Flying Thunder God and dual Kamui combo, Shinji wouldn't have taken him down so easily. According to the original lore, Vaccine Man was seen as the strongest monster before Boros ever entered the picture. His energy sphere attacks were more destructive than the Homeless Emperor's, his body was significantly tougher, and he had multiple transformation stages that elevated his threat level even further. In every aspect, Vaccine Man was a clear upgrade over Homeless Emperor. It made sense, then, that after Vaccine Man was eliminated by Saitama in one punch, the so-called god had to resort to choosing a weaker substitute. Anyway, moments later, Vaccine Man began to regain awareness. But it didn't seem to realize that it had fallen under Jinjutsu. Instinctively, it tried to gather energy to launch an orb at Shinji, only to find that no matter how hard it concentrated, nothing happened. The confusion on its face was unmistakable. Shinji immediately understood what was happening. Since Vaccine Man was now bound to absolute obedience, he physically couldn't initiate an attack on his new master. The system had clearly implemented a specialized version of Jinjutsu in this world. The target retained its consciousness and personality but was forced to follow Shinji's commands no matter what. He actually preferred it that way. Shinji never liked puppets with no mind of their own. A subordinate who could think, act, and strategize, while still obeying, was far more valuable. Stop wasting energy. You can't hurt me anymore. I'll come find you later, Shinji said calmly. With that, he left the Kamui dimension, leaving Vaccine Man floating alone in that pitch-black space, blinking in utter confusion. You're back? Where'd you disappear to just now? Saitama's voice greeted him the moment he reappeared. The caped bald hero looked genuinely curious, as if Shinji had just taken a stroll and popped back in. Just took care of a little side business. What's going on here? Shinji asked, glancing around. That's when he noticed the growing crowd. A large group of heroes and reporters had surrounded them. Cameras flashed. Microphones pointed. The news teams were already live, broadcasting the scene across multiple channels. They showed up while you were gone. They keep saying I was the one who defeated the monster. But you're the one who did it. Saitama looked genuinely helpless, scratching his head as the crowd buzzed around him. Saitama, you're far too modest. Among everyone here, you're the only S-class hero. Who else could have defeated a dragon-level threat if not you? Exactly. You were the only one present, and the monster's corpse is right at your feet. They say this was a dragon-level disaster. Saitama-san, would you allow us to interview you for your thoughts? Is Saitama getting the king treatment? The reporters weren't listening to a single thing he said. It wasn't entirely their fault either. The timing had been unfortunate. Right after Shinji entered the Kamui dimension to subdue Vaccine Man, this group of heroes and reporters arrived. From their point of view, Saitama was standing next to the fallen monster, with no other combatants in sight. The assumption was natural. I already told you, the one who beat the monster was him. Saitama pointed directly at Shinji, trying once again to clear up the misunderstanding. Isn't he that B-class hero, Kamui? That doesn't sound right. I mean, this was a dragon-level monster. No wonder he was classified directly as an S-class hero. He took down a dragon-level threat like it was nothing. He's last place in the rankings right now, but with strength like that, he should definitely be in the top 10. None of the gathered heroes believed a single word of Saitama's explanation. Yup, Saitama had taken the position of king. It just didn't compute. Nobody had witnessed Shinji fight the monster. No one had seen the incredible speed, the teleportation, the Kamui dimension, or the Jinjutsu. So to them, the idea that a B-class hero had taken down a dragon-level threat in less than a minute was completely absurd. Letting out a sigh, Shinji silently opened a portal and tossed Vaccine Man's head from the Kamui dimension into the middle of the crowd. With a sickening thud, a massive, mutated head hit the pavement and rolled a few feet before stopping. Its grotesque features and glowing eyes sent immediate shockwaves through the crowd. It's still alive? Wait, does that mean Saitama didn't defeat it? What's going on? It moved! It just moved! Ahawk! Panic erupted. Reporters screamed. A few heroes nearly collapsed, and more than one person looked seconds away from fainting. Vaccine Man's head, twisted into its enraged mutation form, was a terrifying sight. Everyone there had just witnessed the destruction it had caused minutes earlier, so the idea that even a part of it was still alive triggered pure chaos. And then the head twitched. Its remaining energy pulsed. It attempted to open its mouth and charge an orb. Stay. Shinji's voice was sharp, calm, and commanding. Vaccine Man froze instantly, paralyzed by a single word. Bound by the absolute obedience of the Jinjutsu, it had no choice but to comply. The entire crowd was stunned into silence. A dragon-level monster, completely and utterly submissive, to a B-class hero? Without further comment, Shinji waved his hand and absorbed the head back into the Kamui dimension, sealing it away once again. Then he turned to Saitama. Come on, let's go home. The two of them turned and left the crowd behind. All around them, expressions were frozen, reporters speechless, heroes wide-eyed, cameras forgotten in trembling hands. No one knew what to say. Saitama gave a casual nod, clearly unbothered. He had no intention of staying for interviews. He never cared about glory, and he wasn't about to start now. Soon after, they returned home. Saitama dropped onto the couch and sat in silence for a few moments. This really isn't what I imagined being a hero would be like, he muttered, still unsettled. The reactions from the reporters and other heroes echoed in his mind. Why had everyone so easily dismissed the possibility that Shinji could have defeated the dragon-level monster just because of his lower rank? Why did heroism have to be buried under so much hierarchy and assumption? He didn't have an answer. But one thing was clear, this wasn't the dream he once pictured. Still, things had already progressed to this point. It wasn't as though he could just walk away from the Hero Association now. Shinji gave a knowing smile but didn't say anything. He understood Saitama's discomfort all too well. The Hero Association was a structure riddled with inefficiencies. Its obsession with rigid systems, arbitrary rankings, and self-serving politics clashed with people like Saitama, who saw heroism not as a job or status, but as a personal calling, something done simply because it felt right. But that was the reality of human society. The system wasn't entirely without merit. It had its use, after all. The real rot didn't stem from the structure itself, but from the powerful individuals exploiting it for their own agendas, using the system as cover. Eventually, Saitama stopped brooding and resumed playing video games, his earlier frustration melting away under the familiar comfort of button mashing and digital battles. Meanwhile, Shinji returned to his Kamui dimension. Inside, he found Vaccine Man, still just a severed head, already undergoing regeneration. I was thinking about retrieving your body and bringing it here, but it looks like that won't be necessary, Shinji said casually as he observed the slow growth of flesh reconnecting below the neck. Startled by Shinji's sudden appearance, Vaccine Man flinched. He had already managed to regenerate one muscular arm, which he now used to awkwardly rotate his head to face Shinji. "What did you do to me? Why can't I attack you?" His deep voice rumbled with barely contained rage, the veins in his forehead throbbing from frustration. "I know you're frustrated, but calm down," Shinji replied with a faint, amused smile. "Right now, you're basically my slave. And really, have you ever heard of a slave hurting their master?" Chapter 24, Subjugation. "What?" Vaccine Man's expression twisted into one of shock and disbelief. He couldn't accept what he'd just heard. To be forced into servitude by a human, no less, was beyond humiliating. "I am Vaccine Man, born from Earth's will. I exist to purge humanity and its pollution from this planet. Earth is a living being, and your kind are nothing but parasites, corrupting it with your greed and filth." His voice grew more intense with every word, rage swelling behind his glowing eyes. "My mission is to eradicate all of you, to tear down your civilizations and restore Earth to balance. And you dare to reduce me, an envoy of nature's wrath, to a tool?" But no matter how enraged he became, no matter how deeply the hatred boiled inside him, his body refused to move against Shinji. The anger was real but powerless, caged behind absolute obedience. "I don't care if you're Earth's holy knight or a mutated tree hugger or you fuck trees, last one came out wrong. Right now, you're mine. And if you've got a problem with that, try resisting," Shinji said coolly, his tone as unshaken as his stance. "Damn it." Vaccine Man wanted to defy him, desperately. But the moment the thought crossed his mind, his limbs seized up. His core flared with resistance, but his muscles simply wouldn't respond. The system's restriction suppressed him with absolute control. "I'm not wasting any more time on this," Shinji muttered. With a flick of his fingers, he dragged Vaccine Man out of the Kamui dimension and back into the real world. Back at Shinji's apartment, Saitama was still lounging on the couch, game controller in hand. When he saw Shinji return with a tall, purple-skinned stranger in tow, he raised an eyebrow but didn't look away from the screen for long. "Who's that? A friend of yours? Kinda looks like a monster," Saitama asked casually, fingers still moving across the buttons. "That's Vaccine Man. The dragon-level threat from earlier," Shinji replied. "I've got him under control now. He won't bother your game time." "That will be better." Saitama nodded and returned his focus to the game like it was no big deal. Monster, mutant, or Martian, it didn't matter. As long as the guy didn't mess with his TV, it was fine. Shinji turned slightly toward Vaccine Man and added, "All right, Timmy Piccolo. I'd suggest you behave. I don't plan to hurt you, but that guy over there could end you with a flick of his finger." Vaccine Man scoffed in response, unshaken by the warning. He didn't recognize Saitama in his current calm state. And despite being taken down by Shinji, he still believed he'd only lost because he was caught off guard, not because Shinji was stronger. As far as he was concerned, humans were still inferior. "Once you finish regenerating, I'll get you something to wear," Shinji said, already turning toward the bedroom. Vaccine Man looked down at himself. He was still in his humanoid form, purple-skinned, muscular, and entirely naked. Though he lacked human anatomy in some respects, walking around unclothed was still a problem. Since he was now Shinji's personal weapon, there would definitely be times when he'd need to be brought into public. And if that was going to happen, he needed to look at least somewhat presentable. "Wait!" Vaccine Man's voice rang out in alarm, a rare edge of panic breaking through his usual arrogance. "No! I refuse to wear those ridiculous human garments. I will not become like you pathetic humans." But Shinji didn't even slow his pace. Without replying, he disappeared into the bedroom. Inside, he rifled through his closet, grabbing whatever looked like it might stretch over a 2-meter-tall purple monster. A pair of old track pants and an oversized black hoodie would have to do for now. It wasn't ideal, but at least it covered the essentials. Eventually, Shinji would need to find a tailor who could craft something durable and monster-sized. By the time he came back out, Vaccine Man's regeneration was nearly complete. Muscles flexed, purple skin shimmered faintly under the lights, and his grotesque form had returned to full strength. Yet despite that intimidating figure, the mighty dragon-level threat stood paralyzed. He wanted to run. His mind screamed for escape. But no matter how much he resisted, his body refused to obey. "No! Let me go!" Vaccine Man's voice cracked with rage and humiliation, his eyes bloodshot with fury. But it didn't matter. His body reached forward and took the clothes from Shinji with trembling hands. Piece by piece, he dressed himself. A hoodie went over his hulking upper body. The track pants stretched tight against his massive legs. The waistband rode a bit high, but it held. Only his head remained under his control. And that face, twisted, snarling, anguished, was a portrait of sheer, spiritual collapse. He howled like a caged animal, veins bulging across his forehead as he resisted an order he could not defy. Across the room, Saitama flinched. He'd been right in the middle of chaining a clean combo, and Vaccine Man's wailing had distracted him at the worst moment. The AI opponent seized the chance and punished him with a brutal reversal. Saitama's eyebrow twitched. His grip on the controller tightened. But he didn't say anything. This wasn't his apartment, after all. He just sat there silently, fists clenched, trying to focus through the screeching. Had it been Saitama's home, there would be a massive hole in his apartment, and Vaccine Man would have become a history. If this had been his place, maybe he would have said something. Maybe. But punching Vaccine Man into orbit over noise felt like too much effort. And besides, it looked like the monster was one of theirs now. When the last bit of cloth was in place, Vaccine Man stood there motionless. His shoulders sagged. His hands hung limp at his sides. His eyes stared blankly at the floor. All the fire and venom from earlier had vanished. He looked like a man who had just walked out of a funeral, his own. "Seriously, you act like putting on some clothes is a death sentence," Shinji muttered, utterly unimpressed. Not even decapitation had earned this level of emotional breakdown. Vaccine Man clenched his fists slowly, his voice low and quivering with defiance and shame. "I am Earth's chosen avatar. I will never be assimilated by you filthy, disease-ridden humans." "You say that," Shinji replied flatly, "but you're wearing sweatpants." Right now, Vaccine Man looked just like a hot-blooded shounen protagonist, full of fire and unshakable resolve. "Isn't that a bit dramatic?" Shinji sighed. "Fine, I'm not interested in converting you. Just do your job when I need you, and that's it. I will never serve humans." Vaccine Man's eyes burned with fierce resistance, entirely unwilling to compromise. "That's not your choice to make." Shinji remained calm. "Vaccine Man, go clean the entire apartment. Top to bottom. After all, tools weren't just for combat. They could help with chores too." "No! Stop! I won't!" Vaccine Man's left hand seized his right, trying to hold it back, but his legs betrayed him. They moved on their own, walking straight toward the broom in the corner. And so, consumed by humiliation, Vaccine Man completed a deep clean of Shinji's entire apartment. Of course, he wasn't exactly suited for the task. Though he looked humanoid, Vaccine Man wasn't evolved from humans, he lacked the fine motor skills and instincts needed for mundane chores. He nearly shattered a side table just from lifting it, bent the vacuum handle by gripping it too tightly, and almost cracked a chair leg when adjusting it. Each time, he panicked and hurried to fix what he could before Shinji said anything. Shinji watched the disaster unfold with mild amusement. Not bad. A bit clumsy, but decent overall. "Damn you, human! Just kill me already!" Vaccine Man roared, his voice thick with despair. For a being born from Earth's hatred of mankind, being forced to perform menial domestic labor was beyond torture. It was existential degradation. "Why would I kill you? Isn't it better to live?" Shinji spoke offhandedly as he reclined on the couch. Now go play video games with him. Vaccine Man's body obeyed immediately. Without hesitation, it carried him to the seat beside Saitama. His fingers gripped a controller. On the screen was a chaotic display of flashing colors, characters flying across the battlefield in a fast-paced fighting game he didn't understand in the slightest. Saitama didn't even look over at first. But once Vaccine Man picked up the controller, Saitama's eyes narrowed. His posture shifted. His gaze turned sharp. "Oh? You want to challenge me too?" His voice was low and serious. "I won't go easy on you." Chapter 25, Triple Staff Lily. The first match began. Vaccine Man had no idea how to play the game, let alone how to use the controller, so he simply mashed buttons without any pattern or sense. Unsurprisingly, Saitama completely crushed him in the first round. The next few matches went the exact same way, with Saitama dominating again and again. Having suffered 10 straight losses to Shinji during their last gaming session, Saitama was finally enjoying a well-earned winning streak. That alone lifted his spirits, and he played with a kind of enthusiasm that hadn't been there before. "Haha! I won again," he cheered. By his 6th consecutive win, he was practically shouting with joy. At first, Vaccine Man found the whole activity insufferably dull. To him, humans wasting their time on such pointless games was just another example of their foolishness. But as he continued to lose over and over, an unfamiliar sensation started to bubble up inside him: irritation. Being repeatedly beaten by a human in something so seemingly meaningless still felt like a disgrace, and it gnawed at his pride. Driven by that growing frustration, Vaccine Man started genuinely trying to understand the game. With each passing match, his control of the character improved, and his understanding of the mechanics deepened. Slowly, Saitama began to feel something was off. He glanced sideways at Vaccine Man, brow furrowed. This guy, he's actually getting stronger? Though Saitama kept winning for a few more rounds, each victory started requiring more effort than the last. The most recent match had come down to the wire, with Saitama barely surviving with a sliver of health. Beads of sweat started forming on his forehead. Something was definitely changing. Vaccine Man's lips curled into a smug smirk, and in the next match, he finally secured his first win. "Humph. So much for your vaunted human superiority," he said, his voice laced with pride. "That's just one match. Don't get cocky, you freaking Timmy Piccolo." Saitama shot back, unwilling to let the win slide. "Don't call me that, bald as fuck." From that point forward, the matches became a true contest. They traded wins and losses, neither one managing to completely dominate the other. The competition grew more intense with each round, and both fighters' focus sharpened as the stakes, though entirely virtual, seemed to escalate. Meanwhile, Shinji lounged on the couch, casually sipping his tea and watching it all unfold. This was the real value of a tool, letting Vaccine Man play games with Saitama. Initially, he had assumed the monster would serve as little more than a punching bag for Saitama, just something to feed the hero's ego with a few easy wins. And for a while, it had worked. But the balance quickly shifted. Now the matches were even, and that joy of easy domination vanished. Apparently, Vaccine Man was only resistant on the surface. Deep down, his body craved adaptation and improvement. There was no other explanation for how quickly his skill had developed. Later on, the Hero Association officially classified the incident as a dragon-level disaster. Drawing from eyewitness reports, citizen testimonies, and statements from other heroes who had been on the scene, the association credited both Shinji and Saitama for resolving the crisis. Despite Shinji's lower status as a B-class hero, which often came with its share of discrimination, his contributions weren't entirely overlooked. Many found it hard to accept that someone from B-class could help defeat a dragon-level threat, but the strong impression he left on everyone present, combined with consistent eyewitness accounts, ensured he wasn't completely robbed of recognition. Otherwise, Saitama likely would have received all the credit. Shinji, however, didn't mind sharing the recognition. He had no interest in stirring up conflict with the Hero Association over status. He was well aware that there would be plenty of opportunities to prove himself in the future, and one extra merit or one less wouldn't make much of a difference. Besides, arguing about it wouldn't magically boost his ranking. Strength alone wasn't the determining factor in the Hero Association's rankings. Other elements, contributions, reputation, identity, and connections, played a big part too. In the end, both Shinji and Saitama were promoted. Shinji jumped from B-class rank 56 to rank 5. On the surface, that seemed like a huge leap, but considering the scale of a dragon-level disaster, it wasn't all that surprising. These kinds of threats were rare and devastating, the kind capable of wiping out entire cities. Earning merit from such an event far outweighed accomplishments from wolf, tiger, or even demon-level encounters. As for Saitama, his rank increased from 17 to 15 in the S-class. Though it was only a 2-rank climb, moving up in S-class was notoriously difficult. Even King, who had accumulated much of his fame by absorbing credit that actually belonged to Saitama and was widely regarded as the strongest man alive, remained only at rank 7. That was because ranking wasn't determined purely by combat strength. The association had emphasized this point repeatedly. Things like one's identity, contributions, reputation, and connections all weighed heavily. King, for all his fame, was just a regular person with no actual combat ability and little influence within the association. His greatest assets were his notoriety and the overwhelming public recognition that followed him everywhere. Rank 15, huh? Not bad. That went up pretty fast, Saitama muttered, looking at the updated leaderboard on the Hero Association's official website. Yeah, I just got promoted to B-class rank 5, Shinji said, glancing at his phone. You'll probably hit A-class soon. But before that, let's have a rematch. I'm not the same guy I was a few days ago. Saitama was brimming with confidence again. Sure, Shinji replied as he sat down and booted up King of Fighters. Meanwhile, Vaccine Man, with Shinji's permission, went out for a short walk, though only in the abandoned areas of Z City. Shinji couldn't risk letting him wander into populated zones. That would only bring trouble to his doorstep. 10 minutes later, Saitama had once again transformed into a frustrated boiled egg. He had just suffered another relentless losing streak, this time failing to win even a single round. At least against Vaccine Man, he could still hold his own. But against Shinji? He didn't stand a chance. After all, Vaccine Man was just a rookie, the type of gamer who had only recently stepped into the world, a Piccolo type at best. Defeating someone like that meant nothing in the grand scheme. I'm done for today. I'll go practice for a few days and come back to challenge you again, Saitama muttered, defeated but not broken. He knew he wasn't winning today, but he still believed that with enough effort, he could eventually bridge the gap. After all, he had become bald through sheer willpower and relentless training. But gaming was an entirely different battlefield. Combat strength and gaming skill didn't operate on the same rules. Saitama might be an unstoppable force in a fight, constantly surpassing his own limits, but when it came to gaming, he was painfully average. No amount of effort could help him overcome King, whose skills had long since reached their peak, or Shinji, whose Mangekyo Sharingan gave him near unfair advantages, as if he were playing with cheat codes built into his eyes. Alert! Host has defeated a tiger-level monster. Reward, 10 points. That same day, a new tiger-level threat appeared in Z City. The moment Shinji received the alert, he teleported straight to the location and took care of it instantly. Afterward, he followed protocol and submitted the report to the Hero Association. His rank increased again, moving him up to B-class rank 4. But any further progress was going to be much more difficult. The top slots in B-class were effectively locked down by the Blizzard Group, Fubuki's tightly knit team. Breaking into the top 3 and advancing into A-class meant stepping over them, and that was no easy task. It all came down to influence. On one side stood Shinji, a lone hero with no faction or connections. On the other stood the largest organized group under the Hero Association's umbrella. When it came to how the system distributed merit and opportunity, the bias was clear. As Shinji glanced at his updated rank and prepared to leave, something odd caught his attention. A young girl nearby appeared to be digging for information about him. She looked vaguely familiar, black hair styled into a side ponytail, though strands of her bangs and ponytail were dyed teal. Dressed in a black suit and wearing a white lily-shaped hairpin, she had a youthful face but a noticeably mature figure. That was Lily from the Blizzard Group. Triple Staff Lily, Fubuki's trusted assistant. At the moment, it seemed she hadn't gathered anything worthwhile. The person she had questioned had simply shaken their head. Undeterred, she turned to look for someone else. And, by sheer coincidence, she walked straight up to Shinji. "Excuse me," she began, but then froze mid-sentence. The young man standing in front of her had striking crimson eyes and a familiar face. As soon as she registered his appearance, recognition hit her like a jolt. Lily's entire expression locked up in place. She clearly knew who he was. That's the end of this tale for now. Make sure to like and subscribe for future installments, check out some of our other stories, join the community on Discord, and with that being said, peace.